kompensasyon para sa kanila. Batay sa ulat mga kabayan, doon sa 32 na mga health workers na nasawi, kabilang dyan yung 4 na nurses, 26 naman yung mga doktor, habang 2 yung mga non-medical staff na naibilang doon sa naturang kompensasyon. Magkakaroon din naman ng 60 na mga health workers ng kanilang ayuda.
Resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the reference of business and request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles of bills, resolutions on first reading, as well as communications and committee reports.
The Secretary General is advised to read the bills on first reading.
Additional reference of business. Bills on first reading. House Bill Number 7484, institutionalizing a school modernization and innovation program for public elementary and secondary schools. Representative Suntay.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill Number 7485, providing for the identification, assessment, and education of children with autism spectrum disorder. Representative Suntay.
To the Committee on Welfare of Children.
House Bill Number 7486, providing for a more inclusive and responsive student loan program for Treasury Education. Representative Suntay.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill Number 7489, creating the Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Representative Villafuerte.
To the Committee on Government Reorganization and the Committee on Aquaculture and Fisheries Resources.
House Bill Number 7490, granting hazard pay to private and public healthcare workers during the
Majority Leader.
COVID-19 pandemic. Representative
I
Villafuerte.
move that
To
we
the
designate
Defeat
the following
COVID-19
members
Ad
to the
Hoc
Camera
Committee.
Conference Committee.
House Bill Number
Just recite the
7491,
provisions of
protecting
House Bill
consumers
number
and merchants
6910
engaged in internet
and Senate Bill
transactions.
number
Representative
1365,
Villafuerte.
To the Committee on Trade and
institutionalizing the
Industry.
alternative learning system
House
in the
Bill
basic
Number
education
7492,
for out of
further
school
strengthening the
children,
GSIS.
youth,
Representative
and
Villafuerte.
adults.
To the Committee on Government
Representative Juan
Enterprises
Romulo,
and
Representative Aurelio
Privatization.
Gonzalez Jr.,
House Bill Number
Representative
7493,
Evelina
mandating
Escudero,
the national and
Representative
local
Vieda,
governments to
Marie
purchase
Romualdez,
the
and
produce of
Representative
local farmers
Lawrence
or
Fortun. So
producers
moved, Mr.
for
Speaker.
relief and school feeding programs. Representative
The-
Villafuerte.
To the
Is
Committee
there
on
any
Agriculture
objection?
and Food.
House
Chair,
Bill
here
Number
is none.
7494,
The
establishing
following
the
members
Philippine
are
Geology, Science,
designated
and
to be part of the
Technology
Bicameral
Institute.
Conference
Representative
Committee
Villafuerte.
to the
On the
Defeat
disagreeing
COVID-19 Ad
provisions
Hoc
of House
Committee.
Bill number
House Bill Number
6910 and
7495,
Senate Bill
strengthening drug
number
prevention and control.
1365,
Representative Villafuerte.
institutionalizing
To the
the
Committee on
alternative
Dangerous
learning
Drugs.
system in the
Resolution,
basic
House Resolution
education for out-of-school
1157,
children, youth, and
commending
adults.
Quartermaster Second
The
Class
following are
Raymond
part of
Joseph
the BICAM.
Foley for his heroic
Representative
acts for
Roman
the Philippines
Romulo,
during World War II.
Representative
Robes.
Aurelio
To the Committee on
Gonzalez,
Veterans Affairs and
Representative
Welfare.
House Bill Number
Evelina Escudero,
1158, calling out all
Representative Vieda
DOH
Marie
provincial and
Romualdez,
district
and
hospitals to
Representative
secure
Lawrence
inclusive wards
Fortun.
for our veterans to ensure that they will
Majority
be taken
Leader.
care of. Representative Sabelliano.
To
Mr.
the Committee on
Speaker,
Health.
we are in receipt
House
of
Resolution
messages from the Senate informing
1159,
the House that the
strengthening the
Senate
House
passed with
of
amendments the
Representatives
following House
CPBRD
bills.
by increasing its
House Bill
number of
number
personnel to its annual
2444,
budget.
providing for the
Representative Sabelliano.
establishment of
Committee on
Women's and
Accounts.
Children's Hospital
Messages
in the
from the
municipality
Senate.
of Pamplona in the
Message
province of
dated August
Camarines Sur
24,
to be known
2020,
as the
informing
Bicol
the House
Women's
that on
and
August
Children's
20,
Hospital.
2020, the
Number
Senate
two, House
approved
Bill
the
number
Conference Committee report
6035,
of the Bicameral
increasing the bed
Conference Committee
capacity
on
of the Western
disagreeing
Visayas
provisions
Medical
of
Center
Senate
in
Bill Number
Maduri
1564 and
Riau,
House Bill
Iloilo
Number
City,
6953.
from 150
To the Committee on
from
Rules.
425
Message
beds
dated
to
August
700
24,
beds.
2020, informing
House
the
Bill
House
number
that on August
6036,
19, 2020,
increasing the bed
the Senate
capacity of the Las
designated
Piñas
Senator
General
Hontiveros
Hospital
as additional
and Satellite
conferee
Trauma
to the
Center in Las
Bicameral
Piñas
Conference
City,
Committee
Metro
on
Manila,
disagreeing
from
provisions
200
of
beds
Senate
to
Bill Number
500 beds.
1564 and
House Bill number
6653.
6144,
To the
increasing
Committee on
the bed
Rules.
capacity of the Cagayan Valley
Communications,
Medical
letters, and
Center
emails
in
from
Tuguegarao
several
City,
municipal
province of
mayors,
Cagayan,
city
from
mayors,
500
and
to
provincial
1,000
governors,
beds.
informing the
House
House
Bill
on their
number
reports on fund
6218,
utilization and
renaming the
status of
Malita
programs, projects,
District
and
Hospital
activities,
in Barangay
implementation
Poblacion,
relative to
Municipality of
bayanihan grants
Malita,
to cities and
Malita
municipalities
Province
and
of Davao
provinces for
Occidental,
certain months
to Malita
of
Women's and
2020.
Children's Wellness
To the
Center.
Committee on
House Bill
Appropriations.
number
Committee
6365,
report number
upgrading the
434
Siargao
of
District
the Committee
Hospital
on
in the
Legislative
municipality
Franchise
of
on House Bill
Dapa,
number
province of Surigao del Norte,
7496,
and to a
Report number
level 2 general
435
hospital to
and
be known as
436
the
of the
Siargao
Committee on
Island
Energy
Medical
on House
Center.
Resolution
Number
1160
7,
and
House Bill number
1161. Report
6499,
number
increasing the bed
437
capacity
of
of
the
the
Committee
Quirino
on Public
Memorial
Works
Medical
and
Center
Highways
in
on
Quezon
House Bill
City,
number
Metro Manila
7499.
from
To the Committee
500
on
beds
Rules.
to 1,000 beds. We have been
Majority Leader.
advised that the
Mr.
Committee on
Speaker,
Health,
I move for the
sponsor of the said
consideration
House
on
bills,
third reading
as well as
of
the
House
authors
Bill
thereof, have no
6930.
objections to the amendments introduced thereto by the
Session
Senate.
suspended.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules, I move that we concur with the Senate amendments to House Bills number 2144, 6035, 6036, 6144, 6218, 6365, and 6499. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The concurrence to the amendments in the Senate to House Bill numbers 2144, 0635, 6036, 6144, 6218, 6365, and 6499 are all hereby approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the change of referral of the following measures. House Bill number 11 from the Committee on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government.
Is there any objection?
House Bill number 201 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill number 432 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 1484 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 2438 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill number 2679 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill number 2688 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 2966 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 7181 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 1853 from the Committee on Local Government to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 3384 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Reorganization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bills number 6124 and 6285 from the Committee on Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill 7249, 7256, 7280, 7294, 7313, and 7360 from the Committees on Local Government and Government Enterprise and Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion of changing the referrals of the various House bills is now approved. Majority Leader.
One minute suspension, Mr. Chair.
Session suspended. Session resumed.
Mr. Speaker, under the calendar of unfinished business, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 5989 contained in Committee Report number 200. And for this purpose, may we request the Secretary General to read the title of the bill. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill.
House Bill 5989, an act creating the Department of Disaster Resilience, defining its mandate, powers, and functions, and appropriating funds therefore.
Then we open the
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status of the bill is that it is in the period of sponsorship and debate. I move that the chairperson of the Committee on Government Reorganization, the Honorable Marby Marino of the 5th District of Batangas, be recognized. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Marvy Marino is now recognized.
1 minute suspension, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended.
Mr. Speaker, please recognize the Honorable Lady from the Lone District of Marikina, Representative Stella Kimbo, to interpret the sponsor. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Stella Kimbo is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will the good sponsor yield to some questions?
Gladly, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, unahin na muna natin po ang tanong tungkol sa sakop po ng Department of Disaster Resilience. Ang mandato po ba ng DDR ay tungkol lamang po ba sa natural disasters? Dito po sa definition of terms, section 3 letter R, ay meron po ditong nakasaad na phrase na nakasulat po, unless otherwise specifically indicated in this act, the term disaster shall refer to natural disaster. So ang maganda sigurong tanong dito is, sakop po ba ng natural disaster ang mga pandemic tulad ng COVID-19?
Mr. Speaker, sakop po ng DDR ang mga epidemic and pandemic as a consequence po ng mga natural disasters. For example, a flood or climate change or earthquakes. So kasama po yung health epidemic, and eventually it is a consequence is the pandemic.
Mr. Speaker, siguro konting clarification lang po, Mr. Sponsor. Dito po sa panukalang batas, distinctions are made between natural disasters and human-induced disasters. So again, just for clarification, ang sinasabi niyo po ay considered natural disaster ang COVID-19 at hindi po siya human-induced. Tama po ba?
Not necessarily, Mr. Speaker. Ang sinasabi ko lang po ay as a consequence of natural disasters, which is maybe flood or earthquakes and other disasters, kasama po yung health issue. Now, the pandemic may be or may not be in definition
Mr. Speaker, I move that we
man-made,
designate the
but
following members
it can
to
be
the
a consequence of
Bicameral Conference Committee on the
climate change. For
disabling
example,
provisions of
in a
House Bill
climate
number
change,
6910 and Senate Bill number
nag-iiba po
1365,
yung
institutionalizing
movements
the alternative learning
ng
system
mga,
in the basic education
for
for
example, ng
out-of-school
mga
children, youth, and adults. Representative Roman Romulo,
species, nag-iba
Representative
po ang
Aurelio
lubes mga
Gonzalez
species,
Jr.,
small
Representative Evelina
animals,
Escudero,
usually
Representative
nagmamigrate
Vieda,
po sila
Marie
sa
Romualdez, and
cooler
Representative
environment.
Lawrence Fortune.
And so
Move, Mr. Speaker.
there are opportunities na nagkakaroon po ng
Is there
different
any objection?
uh,
Chair hears none.
pathogens
The
because
following
of this
members are designated to be
migration.
part of the
So
bicameral
eventually,
conference
kasama po
committee
yun sa
on the
re-respondehan
disagreeing provisions of House Bill number
I mean, it can be an
6910
epidemic
and
at
Senate
first,
Bill number
but then obviously if it
1365,
goes on
institutionalizing the alternative learning
spreads all over the
system
world,
in the
it could
basic
be a
education for out-of-school
Mr.
children, youth, and adults.
Mr. Sponsor,
The following are part of the
Mr.
BICAM.
Speaker,
Representative
dito
Roman
po sa Section
Romulo,
4,
Representative
there is a
Aurelio
proviso, and
Gonzalez,
let me read that. It says
Representative
that for
Evelina
human-induced
Escudero,
disasters, the DILG,
Representative
DND,
Vieda
DSWD,
Marie
AFP,
Romualdez,
BFP,
and
PNP,
Representative
PCG,
Lawrence
and the
Fortune.
and the OCD shall continue to
Majority
perform
Leader.
its functions. Kaya po
Mr.
sana
Speaker,
ay
we are in
gusto ko
receipt of
sanang
messages from the
ma-clarify.
Senate informing the House
Dahil
that the
may mga
Senate passed
ilang
with amendments the following
provisions dito sa
House
panukala
bills.
na
House Bill number
kailangan tila ang
2444,
distinction
providing
nga
for the
between
establishment
natural
of
and
Women's and
human
Children's Hospital
induced.
in the municipality of Pamplona in the
And
province
meron
of
din po
Camarines
sa
Sur
Section
to
48
be known as the
na
Bicol
pagdating
Women's
naman po
and
sa
Children's
humanitarian
Hospital.
relief,
Number 2, House Bill number
naka-indicate po dito, the Secretary of the
6035,
DDR
increasing the bed
shall have the
capacity of the
authority to
Western
provide
Visayas Medical Center
humanitarian relief
in
in the consequent
Maduri,
management of
Riau,
human-induced
Iloilo City
emergencies.
from
So,
150
may banggit
from,
ulit
hun-
po
from
dito sa
425 beds
human-induced.
to 700 beds.
Tama po, Mr.
House
Speaker.
Bill number
It doesn't
6036,
prevent the
increasing the
agency
bed capacity of the
from
Las Piñas General Hospital
providing
and
assistance
Satellite Trauma Center
to,
in Las Piñas City, Metro
let's
Manila,
say,
from
human
200 beds
induced.
to
It's not
500 beds.
specified here, but
House Bill
mostly
number
this is for natural
6144,
calamities, but it
increasing
doesn't
the bed
prevent
capacity
this
of the Cagayan
agency
Valley
from,
Medical Center in Tuguegarao City,
acting upon
province of
as a
Cagayan, from
response
500
if
to
there are
1,000
lives at
beds.
stakes,
House Bill number
and other
6218,
instances, for
renaming the
example, if
Malita
also the
District
President
Hospital in Barangay
asked this
Poblacion,
agency to help
Municipality
and
of
do so.
Malita,
So it does
Malita
not prevent this
Province of
agency
Davao
from
Occidental to
helping
Malita
out,
Women's and
Mr.
Children's
Speaker.
Wellness Center.
Mr. Speaker,
House Bill number
good sponsor, maraming
6365,
salamat po for that
upgrading the Siargao
clarification.
District Hospital in the municipality
Siguro
of
naman po,
Dapa,
it is
province
correct
of
to say
Surigao
that
del
the
Norte,
goal
into a
of this
level 2
bill
General Hospital to
is
be
to
known
provide a
as
more
the Siargao
effective and more
Island Medical
timely
Center.
response to disasters.
And number 7,
as well
House Bill
as
number
put in place measures and
6499,
programs
increasing
that
the
will
bed
mitigate
capacity of the
disasters.
Quirino Memorial
And
Medical Center in
your
Quezon City,
proposed
Metro
approach
Manila, from
is to
500 beds
create a
to
new
1,000
and separate
beds.
department
We have been
for
advised
disaster
that the Committee on
resilience
Health,
while
sponsor of the said House
doing
bills,
the
as
following.
well as the
Number
authors
1,
thereof, have
abolishing
no
the
objections to the amendments
MDR-MMC.
introduced thereto
Number
by
2,
the Senate.
transferring a
Mr.
unit
Speaker,
at the
in accordance with the
OCD
rules, I move
the new
that we
department,
concur
DDR,
with the Senate
transferring
amendments to
2
House Bills
units
number
at the DSWD to the
12144,
DDR.
6035,
Number 4, maintaining certain
6036,
disaster-related
6144,
functions performed by
6218,
the DILG,
6365,
DND, and
and
DSWD.
6499. So
Number
moved,
5,
Mr. Speaker.
fostering
any
close
objection?
coordination with the Climate Change Commission.
Chair hears
6,
none.
retaining the
The
local
concurrence
DRRM
to the
offices in
amendments in the
provinces,
Senate
cities, and
to House Bill
municipalities,
numbers
including
2144,
abolishing the
0635,
local DRRM councils,
6036,
and finally,
6144,
mandating joint operational
6218,
supervision of
6365, and
PAG-ASA and
6499
PBOX with the DOST.
are
Number 2,
all hereby
MGB
approved.
with the DNR.
Majority Leader.
Number 3, HCMB with
Mr.
the
Speaker,
DOH.
I
and
move for the
finally,
change of
BFP
referral of the
with
following
DILG.
measures.
So can the
House
good
Bill
sponsor
number 11
confirm that this
from
is
the Committee
proposed
on Local
approach?
Government and Government Enterprise
it is,
and
Mr.
Privatization to the Committees
confirm.
on Government
Pwede po ba,
Enterprise
Mr.
and
Speaker, good sponsor,
Privatization and Local Government.
pa-explain na lang po sa
Is there
amin
any
ano ba
objection?
ang kahinaan ng
House
current
Bill
system sa
number
ngayon
201
na kinakailangan po
from the
natin na
Committees on Local
mag-migrate
Government and
dito po sa
Government
panibagong
Enterprise and
sistema
Privatization
pagdating po sa
to the
disaster
Committees on
resilience.
Government
Yes, Mr.
Enterprise and
Speaker, siguro po,
Privatization and Local Government.
It's better
House
if I give
Bill
an
number
example.
42
For instance, nung nakaraan
from the
pong,
Committees on Local Government and
pagputok
Government
ng
Enterprise and
Taal Volcano,
Privatization to the Committees on Government Enterprise
nakita
and
po natin
Privatization
na
and
hindi
Local
po tayo
Government.
talaga handa.
House Bill
Yung mga tao po hindi
1484
alam.
from the
They didn't
Committees
know where
on
to
Local
go
Government
as far
and
as
Government
which
Enterprise
evacuation
and
centers they
Privatization
should go, how the
to the Committees on
relief
Government
efforts should be
Enterprise
done.
and Privatization
So,
and
hindi po
Local
nila
Government.
nalalaman kung ano yung mga
House
dapat
Bill
gawin. Nabigla po tayo.
2438
So,
from the Committees on Local
isa po
Government and
magandang
Government
halimbawa yung pagputok ng taal.
Enterprise and
Isa pa po,
Privatization, to the Committees
when
on
the,
Government Enterprise and
local chief
Privatization and Local
executives,
Government.
we're asking for
House Bill number
assistance. They didn't
2679
know
from the
who to call to.
Committees on
They
Local
didn't know
Government
which
and Government
secretary
Enterprise
to
and
call to because there are
Privatization,
so many different
to the
secretaries
Committees on Government
who
Enterprise
can
and
respond.
Privatization and Local
DILG,
Government. House Bill
DSWD,
number
and also
2688
in rebuilding.
from the Committees on
There
Local
is no
Government
one
and Government
agency
Enterprise and
responsible
Privatization,
for
to the Committees
the
on
plans
Government
and which
Enterprise and
ones should
Privatization
be
and Local Government.
uh,
House Bill
prepared.
2966
So mahina po
from the
yung
Committees on Local
current
Government and Government
system
Enterprise and
natin ngayon kasi
Privatization,
nga po
to the
hindi po
Committees
siya
on Government Enterprise and
integrated, hindi
Privatization
po
and
siya
Local Government.
streamlined
House
because
Bill
there are so many different
7181
agencies.
from the
And
Committees
before,
on Local
time of
Government
the
and
essence
Government
in
Enterprise and
times of
Privatization, to the
calamity.
Committees on
So,
Government Enterprise and
bago pa po
Privatization and Local
makapag-coordinate
Government.
itong mga different
House Bill
agencies,
1853 from the
nangyari
Committee
na
on
po
Local Government
yung
to the
mga
Committees
dapat
on Local
hindi nangyari. At sana
to
mas
the
na-prevent
Committees
pa
on
po yung mga
Government Enterprise and Privatization and Local Government. House Bill
casualties.
3384
And also, it's
from the
the
Committees
speed
on Local
of the
Government
response is
and
also
Government
critical
Reorganization,
in times of
to the Committees on
calamity.
Government
So, yun
Enterprise
po
and
yung
Privatization and
matagal
Local
nang
Government.
tinitingnan
House Bills number
na dapat po ay
6124
matagal na
and
itong departamentong ito
6285
na-create dahil nga po
from
may
the Committee
kahinaan
on
ng
Government
konti ang
Enterprise
ating
and Privatization,
present situation.
to the
Wala
Committees on
pong
Government Enterprise and Privatization and
talagang
Local Government.
nagpo-provide ng
House Bill
clear
7249,
preparation, implementation, and also the monitoring,
7256,
and also the
7280,
database gathering. Hindi po tayo
7294,
handa dahil nga po
7313,
walang isang
and
ahensya
7360
na nagtatago
from the
ng
Committees
mga
on
kaalaman na
Government and
natutunan
Government
natin sa
Enterprise
best
and
practices
Privatization,
ng mga nakaraang
to the Committees on
calamities. So
Government
yun po
Enterprise
yung
and Privatization and Local
purpose
Government. I
ng
so move, Mr.
departamentong
Speaker.
ito at para po
Is there
mas
any
lalong
objection?
mas madali yung
Hearing
pagtugon
none,
at mapag-aralan ng
motion
mabuti
of
yung mga plano
changing the
sa mga
referrals
susunod
of
pang panahon.
the various House
Pati nga
bills
po itong
is now approved.
COVID, nasabi ko po
Majority
yung
Leader.
Taal Volcano ay hanggang ngayon hindi pa ho namin alam kung saan ahensya
1 minute suspension,
magtatanong,
Mr.
kung
Chair.
saan
Session
ahensya.
suspended.
Sana po nalaman namin before kung alin yung mga evacuation centers. And these evacuation centers could have been isolation centers in times of this pandemic. Hindi na po sana tayo gagastos ng malaki para magtayo pa ng isolation facilities because we prepared the evacuation
Session
centers
resumed.
which could be isolation
Mr. Speaker,
facilities.
under
So
the
yun po yung
calendar of unfinished business, I
rason
move
kung
that we
bakit
resume consideration of
kinakailangan ng
House
isang
Bill number
departamento at
5989,
kailangan din po
contained
naman
in Committee Report
na
number 200.
kasama yung
And for
mga
this
ibang
purpose, may
ahensya
we
gaya ng
request the Secretary General to
Bureau
read
of
the
Fire,
title of the bill.
DILG,
So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary
part ng
General is
DSWD para po, for
directed to
example,
read the title of the bill.
you're conducting
House
relief
Bill
operations, kailangan po
5989,
ng
an act
security
creating
din
the Department
nung
of
ating
Disaster
mga,
Resilience, defining its mandate,
government
powers, and
employees
functions,
when they
appropriating
do
funds
the
therefor.
disaster relief operations. So yun po,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, ang basihan kung bakit kinakailangan ng departamentong ito. Ang departamentong
Mr.
po
Speaker,
ito
the
ay
parliamentary
para
status of the bill
magsagip
is
ng
that
buhay.
it is in the period of
So,
sponsorship
it
and
is,
debate. I move that the chairperson of the
matagal na po
Committee
itong
on Government
pinaplano.
Reorganization,
Sana nga po
Honorable
it is very
Bobby Marino
timely.
of the 5th District of
Hindi na po
Batangas, be
sana
recognized.
natin
So move,
inantay
Mr.
yung
Speaker.
mga malalaki pang kalamidad
Representative
upang
Marvin
ma-realize
Marino is
natin
now
na
recognized.
kailangan natin ang departamentong ito to move forward, Mr.
1
Speaker.
minute suspension, Mr.
In other words,
Speaker.
Session
Mr.
suspended.
Speaker, good sponsor, para sa ating mga kababayan, ngayon po ay magiging klaro kung saan pupunta kapag po may disaster and magiging klaro din po ang accountabilities pagdating po sa ating safety during a disaster. So maganda po ang inyong paliwanag. Ako po naman ay sumusuporta dito sa konsepto ng isang DDR. Punta naman po tayo sa Section 880 na kung saan po ay nabanggit ang
Mr.
konsepto
Speaker,
ng
please
joint
recognize the
operational
Honorable Lady
supervision.
from,
So
Dalawang
yun po ang
District of
aking
Marikina,
tanong, Mr. Speaker,
Representative
good
Stella
sponsor.
Kimbo, to interpret
Pagtitignan
the
po
sponsor.
natin
So
ang
move, Mr.
administrative
Speaker.
code, nandyan po ang konsepto tulad ng
Representative Stella Kimbo is
administrative
now
supervision.
recognized.
Meron din pong supervision
Mr.
and
Speaker.
control.
Mr. Speaker, will the
Pero
good
tila
sponsor
wala pong
yield to some
operational
questions?
supervision. At wala rin
Gladly,
pong
Mr. Speaker.
joint operational supervision. Tila
Mr.
ito
Speaker,
po ay
Mr. Sponsor,
isang bagong konsepto. So yun po ang aking
unahin
tanong
na
sa
muna
inyo.
natin po ang
Sa tingin ko po,
tungkol
Mr.
sa
Sponsor,
sakop
ang
po ng
issue
Department
dito na
of
kailangan linawin
Disaster
is
Resilience.
paano kaya po
Ang
ang
mandato
conflict
po ba ng
resolution
DDR ay
sa isang
tungkol
sistema
lamang po ba sa
ng joint
natural disasters?
operational
Dito po
supervision?
sa definition
Kumbaga
of
po,
terms,
Mr. Sponsor, sa
Section
isang
3,
pamilya,
letter R,
may tatay, may
ay meron
nanay,
po
may
ditong
mga anak.
nakasaad
Minsan, ang
na
tatay at nanay
phrase na nakasulat
ay hindi po
unless
sang-ayon
otherwise
sa
specifically
paraan
indicated
kung
in
paano
this act.
magpalaki ng
The
anak.
term disaster
Pero dahil
shall refer
meron
to
tayong mga
natural
built-in
disaster.
conflict resolution
So, ang
mechanism,
maganda
mechanism
sigurong
sa
tanong
konteksto
dito
ng pamilya,
is,
ayan po ay nagagamit.
sakop po
No? Sa
ba
kasama
ng
dyan ang
natural
kultura,
disaster ang
nandiyan din
mga
ang religious
pandemic
beliefs.
tulad ng
But in the
COVID-19?
case of a concept called joint operational supervision,
Mr. Speaker,
anong
sakop po
mangyayari po dyan kung
ng
halimbawa
DDR
hindi po
ang
in
mga
agreement
epidemic
si
and
DDR at
pandemic
si DOST
as a consequence
patungkol po
ng mga,
halimbawa sa
natural
hiring
disasters,
ng
for
employees
example,
ng pag-asa?
flood or
Sino kayang mananaig sa
climate
ganong
change
klaseng
or
sitwasyon?
earthquakes.
Will they
So,
have to
kasama po yung
resort
health,
to going to
epidemic,
court
and
in order
eventually
to
it is a
resolve
consequence
such
is the
conflicts?
pandemic.
At ang problema pa po, Mr. Speaker,
Sa tingin
siguro
ko,
konting
ay meron
clarification lang po,
Section
Mr.
76
Sponsor,
na naka-indicate
po,
and
dito po sa
let me read
panukalang
that
batas,
portion.
no
Distinctions are
court
made between
except the Supreme
natural
Court
disasters
shall have
and
the powers to
human
issue
induced
an injunction
disasters.
or
again, just for
ETRO against
clarification,
any
ang
action
sinasabi
taken
niyo po
or projects implemented
ay
by the
considered
DDR or its
natural
agents
disaster
pursuant to this act.
ang COVID-19
So ang intindi ko po
at
dito
hindi po
ay
siya human-induced.
tila po kung magka-conflict at
Tama po ba?
mapunta sa korte,
Not
halimbawa
necessarily,
si
Mr.
DDR
Speaker.
at si DOST,
Ang
mukha naman
sinasabi
pong
ko lang po
lopsided
ay as a
against
consequence of
DOST.
natural
ang,
disasters,
mangyayari po.
which is
that a
maybe flood
correct
or earthquakes and
appreciation?
other disasters.
Mr.
Kasama
Speaker,
po yung
during
health
one of
issue.
the
Now, the
meetings
pandemic
with
may
different
be or may
agencies
not
just
be
recently
in definition
through Zoom,
man-made, but
there was a
it can be a
proposal,
consequence of a
proposed
climate
by,
change. For example, in a
Yusek
climate
Solidum,
change,
and the correct word, if I'm not mistaken,
nag-iiba
under
po
the
yung
proposed amendment,
movement
is a
ng
continuously
mga,
call upon,
for example, ng mga
word,
which means this agency can continuously
species,
call
nag-iba
upon
po ang
the
movements
different
mga
species,
agencies,
but
small
this
animals
agency will not
usually
be nagmamigrate po sila sa
administratively
cooler environment,
managing
and
the
so
other
there are
agencies.
opportunities
So,
na
in
nagkakaroon
times
po ng
of
different
calamity,
then obviously there will be some
pathogens
leadership because of this
to be done by this
migration.
agency as
So
far as
eventually
coordination,
kasama po yun
and
sa
all that.
re-respondehan.
But
ng,
in preparing for a
department.
calamity,
I mean, it can be an epidemic
correct,
at first, but then
idea
obviously
is
if it
to continuously
goes
call
on,
upon so that
as far as
for example,
spreads all over the world,
data from
it could
Pag-asa,
be a
from
pandemic.
pillbox
can
Mr.
be
Speaker.
given freely
Mr.
to this
Sponsor,
agency, but there should be no
Mr.
conflict
Speaker,
as far as
dito po sa
who's in
Section
charge
4,
of this
there
agency.
is
It will be the
a
same
proviso, and let me
setup
read
as
that.
far
It
as
says
which agency they belong
that
to.
for
They will not be
human-induced
under,
disasters, the
the
DILG,
direct
DND,
supervision of this
DSWD,
agency,
AFP,
but
BFP,
only
PNP,
when there is
PCG,
a
and the
calamity,
OCD
but
shall
when there
continue
is
to
no
perform
calamity,
its functions.
the
Kaya
correct
po sana
term
ay
will be
gusto ko
call on
sanang
them,
maklarify
continuously call on the
dahil may
different
mga ilang
agencies
provisions
as
dito
far
sa
as for
panukala na
preparation. So, para din po yung
kailangan tila
magulang,
ang distinction nga
nasabi
between
niyo po na
natural
isang
and
ama, isang
human
ina. So, at least yung
induced.
dalawa pong nag-uusap, parehong
And meron
department
din po sa
secretary.
Section 48
So,
na pagdating naman po sa
pwede
humanitarian
naman po
relief,
yung pag-usapan. No need to go
naka-indicate
to
po
court
dito, the
because
Secretary of the
kung sino
DDR
man po
shall
yung,
have the
for
authority
example,
to provide
DOST, for
humanitarian
example,
relief in the consequence management
pillbox is
of
under
human-induced
DOST.
emergencies.
Siya pa rin naman po
So, may
yung
banggit ulit po
head
dito sa
agency ng
human-induced.
pillbox. Tama po, Mr. Speaker.
Mr.
It
Sponsor,
doesn't prevent the agency
you
from
will
providing
change
assistance to
the model of joint
let's say,
operational supervision.
human
Is that
induced. It's
what you're
not,
saying? Or
specified here,
you
but
continue
mostly
to
this is for natural calamities, but it doesn't prevent
use the
this
concept of
agency
joint
from
operational supervision
acting upon
but with
as a response if there are lives at
qualifiers?
stake,
Is that what you're saying,
and
Mr.
other
Sponsor?
instances, for example,
there
if
is a
also the
there will
president
be an amendment
asked this
to
agency
Section
to help
80,
and do
which
so,
was agreed
so it does
upon
not prevent
by,
this agency from helping out the different
Mr.
agencies
Speaker.
and
Mr. Speaker, good sponsor, maraming salamat po for that
will be
clarification.
interdepartmental relations and
Siguro naman po, it
coordination.
is correct to say that
And
the
then,
goal of this bill
Interdepartmental
is to provide a more
relations and
effective and
exercise
more
close
timely
coordination
response
with
to
and shall
disasters,
continuously
as well
call upon
as put in
the
place
following
measures and
departments.
programs
So hindi
that
na
will
po yung
mitigate
wording na
disasters.
joint
And your
supervision. It will be an
proposed approach
interdepartmental
is to
relations
create a
and
new and
coordination.
separate
That
department
would be the
for
wording
disaster
of the Section
resilience,
80, Mr.
while
Speaker.
doing
Mr.
the
Speaker,
following.
Mr.
Number
Sponsor,
one, abolishing
we in
the
minority
NDRMMC.
welcome that proposed
Number two,
amendment. Of
transferring
course,
a unit
pagdating po ng,
at the
proper
OCD
time,
to the
kami
new
po ay
department,
sasangayon
DDR,
po kung yan po ay
transferring
may
2
introduce.
units at the
Babanggitin ko lang po
DSWD
sa Section
to
80,
the DDR.
there is
Number
a
four,
proviso here
maintaining
which I
certain
believe needs
disaster-related
to be
functions
clarified and
performed by the DILG, DND, and
and
DSWD.
let me read that
Number
portion.
five, fostering
Provided
close
furthermore
coordination
that the said
with the Climate
agencies will be
Change
under
Commission.
the operational supervision
6,
and direct control of
retaining
the
the
department
local
in anticipation
DRRM
of,
offices in provinces,
during,
cities, and
and
municipalities,
as necessary in the
including
determination of the Secretary of
abolishing
Disaster
the local
Resilience
DRRM
in the
councils,
aftermath of emergencies
and finally,
disasters.
mandating joint
lumalabas po
operational
dito
supervision
ay
of
before,
PAGASA and FIVOX with the
during,
DOST,
and
number
after,
2, MGB
dahil
with the
nabanggit po yung
DNR,
before, during, and after,
number 3,
ay
HEMB with the DOH,
magkakaroon po
and finally,
ng direct
BFP
control
with the DILG.
ang DDR.
So can the
dito
good
po
sponsor confirm
sa
that this is
tulad
the
ng
proposed
PAGASA and
approach?
FIVOX. So ang tanong ko po,
It is,
since you're
Mr.
talking
Speaker.
about before, during,
confirm.
and after,
Pwede po
isn't
ba,
that the
Mr.
same
Speaker,
as all
good
the time?
sponsor,
Mr. Speaker?
pa-explain na lang po sa amin ano ba
Mr. Speaker,
ang kahinaan
the proper
ng current
amendment will be
system sa
done
ngayon na
during
kinakailangan
the
po natin na
amendment period.
mag-migrate
And
dito
meron
po
din
sa
pong
panibagong
amendment
sistema
doon sa,
pagdating po sa disaster resilience.
pinopropose. Actually, it was a proposal of
Yes,
the
Mr. Speaker, siguro po,
Honorable Kimbo,
that
it's
I'm
better if I
basing
give an example.
the amendments on.
For instance, nung
Meron
nakaraan
din pong
pong
proper wording as far as
pagputok
that
ng
section
Taal
will be
Volcano.
concerned.
So,
Nakita
it will
po natin
be,
na
like
hindi
I
po
said,
tayo
it will be a
talaga handa
continuously, yung mga
continuously
tao
call
po
upon.
hindi alam. So,
They didn't
siguro
know
po
where to
during
go
the
as far as
which evacuation centers they
during
should go,
the calamity,
the relief
that's
efforts
when
should be done. So, hindi po
the
nila
powers
nalalaman
of
kung
this,
ano yung mga
department
dapat
will be
gawin. Nabigla po
implemented,
tayo.
but not,
So,
like I said, it was not, it's
isa po
not
magandang
before
halimbawa,
a
yung
calamity
pagputok
because
ng
we cannot
Taal.
predict it.
Isa
It's
pa po,
always
when the
we are always in the
local chief
mode of
executives,
preparation. So
we're asking
it will
for
be properly
assistance.
amended,
They
Mr.
didn't know
Speaker, as far as
who
the
to call
concern
to.
of the Honorable
They didn't
Kimbo.
know which secretary to
Mr.
call
Speaker,
to because there are so many different
ikinatutuwa ko po na
secretaries
i-consider po
who
ng
can
ating good
respond.
sponsor
DILG,
ang ating
DSWD,
recommendations pagdating po
and
dito
also
sa joint
in rebuilding.
operational supervision.
There is
Siguro
no
po,
one agency
panghuli na lang
responsible
po,
for
I just want to
the
mention
plans
that
and
it is
which
really
ones
very
should
clear
be
that activities of both PAGASA
prepared.
and
So
PIVOX
mahina po
are
yung
scientific
current
and technical in
system
nature.
natin ngayon kasi nga po
And
hindi po siya
these agencies conduct scientific
integrated, hindi po
research.
siya
So
streamlined
napakahirap po
because there are so
na
many different
mapolitika
agencies. And
ang
before,
ganitong klaseng mga
time of the essence
ahensya.
in times
And,
of calamity.
to
So,
emphasize po,
bago
no,
pa po
ang
makapag-coordinate itong mga
at PAGASA
different
ay talaga
agencies,
pong mga scientists po karamihan
nangyari na
ang
po
empleyado po
yung
dyan.
mga dapat
Sa
hindi
PIVOX
nangyari.
po,
At sana
meron
mas
silang 7
na-prevent
na
pa po
empleyadong
yung mga
PhDs, ang 26 po sa kanila, Masters of
casualties.
Science.
And
May dalawa
also,
pang
it's the
PhD
speed
na
of the
in-import
response
from
is
the
also
DOST.
critical
Pagdating
in
naman po
times
sa
of
PIVOX, meron pong
calamity.
7 PhDs.
So, yun po yung
Sorry,
matagal
pagdating
ng
sa PAGASA, meron 8
tinitingnan
PhDs at merong 81 po
na dapat ho ay matagal na itong
masters,
departamentong ito
holders.
na-create. Dahil
So
nga po
clearly
may
po,
kahinaan ng konti ang ating present
nerds
situation.
po
Wala
dito sa
pong
mga scientific, sa mga government
talagang
agencies na to.
nagpo-provide
Kaya't,
ng clear
mahirap talaga po
preparation,
na-
implementation, and also the
na
monitoring. And
mapasailalim po
also
sila
the
sa isang
database
liderato na hindi
gathering,
naman po
hindi po
scientific
tayo
din ang
handa.
primary mandate.
Dahil nga
So,
po walang
kinatutuwa
isang
ko po
ahensya
you
na
will consider po the,
nagtatago ng mga
proposed
kaalaman
amendment
na
at
natutunan
the
natin sa best
So, yun na lang
practices
po
sa
ang
mga
aking
nakaraang
huling comment,
calamity. So
Mr.
yun po
Speaker,
yung
Mr. Sponsor,
purpose
maraming salamat po.
ng departamentong ito
I'd like to thank
at
also the Honorable Kimbo
para po
for,
mas lalong
giving
mas
us the
madali
proposal, and I
yung
will,
pagtugon
I will,
at mapag-aralan ng mabuti yung
talk to
mga
her
plano
about
sa
the
mga
other
susunod pang
amendments as
panahon.
far as,
Pati
this,
nga po
section
itong
is concerned
COVID,
at the
nasabi ko
proper
po
time, Mr.
yung
Speaker.
Taal Volcano ay hanggang ngayon hindi pa ho namin alam kung saan ahensya magtatanong, kung saan ahensya sana po nalaman namin before kung alin yung mga evacuation centers. And these evacuation centers could have been isolation
Representative
centers
Khalid Dimaporo
in times of
is now
this
recognized.
pandemic. Hindi na po sana tayo gagastos ng malaki para magtayo pa ng isolation facilities
Speaker,
because
colleagues,
we prepared
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
the
wabarakatuh.
evacuation centers which could be isolation
Speaker, I'd like to ask
facilities. So yun po
if
yung
the author
rason kung bakit
and chair
kinakailangan ng
would
isang
allow me to make
departamento
a
at
short
kailangan din po
manifestation
naman
and then just
na
ask a few
kasama
questions.
yung mga ibang
Certainly,
ahensya
Mr. Speaker.
gaya ng Bureau of Fire, DILG, part ng DSWD para po, for example,
For my
they're
manifestation,
conducting relief
I'd just
operations,
like to
kailangan po
state
ng
on the
security
record
din nung
that
ating
the province
mga,
of Lanao del Norte
government
is among the
employees
provinces in
when
the
they do
Mindanao
the,
region
disaster relief
which suffer from
operations. So yun po,
periodic armed
Mr.
conflict.
Speaker, ang,
Creating the Department
basihan kung
of
bakit
Disaster
kinakailangan ng
Resilience,
departamentong ito. Ang
which addresses
departamentong po ito
solely
ay para
natural
magsabik ng buhay.
disasters,
So,
may consequently
it is,
limit the assistance from the national
matagal
government
na po
during
itong,
times of war
pinaplano.
or
Sana nga
terrorist
po, it is
attacks.
very timely.
The first
Hindi na
issue
po
that I
sana
have
natin inantay
with the
yung mga
proposed
malalaki
bill
pang
is that it redefines
kalamidad
disaster
upang ma-realize
as
natin na
natural
kailangan
disaster,
natin ang,
making the
departamentong
overall
ito
spirit
to
of the
move
proposed
forward,
law
Mr. Speaker.
exclusive
In other words,
to
Mr.
communities
Speaker, good
affected
sponsor,
by natural
para sa ating mga
disasters.
kababayan,
What
ngayon
about
po ay
provinces
magiging
like Lanao
klaro
del Norte
kung
who
saan
are under
pupunta
threat
kapag
of
po
armed
may
conflict,
disaster. And
or
magiging
cities
klaro
like
din po
Marawi,
ang
Zamboanga, Ulo,
accountabilities pagdating
Cotabato,
po sa ating safety
who may be
during
made
a
into
disaster.
another
So
battlefield
maganda po ang
between
inyong
government
paliwanag.
forces
Ako po
and
naman
armed
ay
groups
sumusuporta dito
such as
sa
ISIS affiliates.
konsepto ng
In
isang
Republic Act
DDR.
10121,
Punta naman po tayo
the
sa
Philippine
Section
Disaster Risk
80
Reduction and Management
na kung
Act of
saan po
2010,
ay nabanggit ang
disaster
konsepto
is defined in
ng
Section
Joint
3H
Operational
as a serious
Supervision.
disruption of the
So
function
yun
of
po
a
ang aking
community
tanong, Mr.
or a
Speaker, good
society
sponsor.
involving widespread
Pagtitignan
human,
po natin ang
material,
administrative
economic, or
code,
environmental
nandyan po
losses
ang
and
konsepto
impacts
tulad
which
ng
exceeds the ability of the
administrative
affected
supervision.
community or
Meron din
society
pong
to cope
supervision
using
and
its
control.
own resources.
Pero tila
House
wala
Bill
pong
5989,
operational
the
supervision.
Disaster
At
Resilience
wala rin
Act,
pong
proposes to
joint
separate
operational
the definition
supervision.
of disaster
Tila ito
and
po
human-induced
ay
calamities.
isang bagong konsepto.
In its
So yun po ang
definition
aking tanong
of
sa inyo.
disaster, found in
Sa tingin
Section
ko po,
3R,
Mr. Sponsor,
it
ang
adopts the Republic Act
issue dito
10121
na kailangan
definition of
linawin
disaster
is paano
with
kaya
an
po ang
additional
conflict
sentence.
resolution sa isang
And the additional
sistema
sentence is,
ng joint
quote-unquote,
operational
unless
supervision.
otherwise
Kumbaga
specifically
po, Mr.
indicated in
Sponsor,
this
sa isang
act,
pamilya,
the
may
term
tatay, may
disaster
nanay, may
shall
mga
refer
anak.
to
Minsan,
natural
ang tatay
disaster.
at nanay ay hindi
Unlike
po
Republic
sang-ayon
10121,
sa
which
paraan
treats
kung paano
disaster
magpalaki ng anak.
generally
Pero dahil
as a
meron
serious
tayong mga
disruption
built-in
to our
conflict resolution
communities,
mechanism
the
sa
proposed
konteksto ng
measure
pamilya,
provides a
ayan po ay
separate
nagagamit. No?
definition
Sa kasama dyan
for
ang
human-induced
kultura, nandiyan din ang
disaster
religious
in
beliefs.
Section 3
But in the
PP
case of a concept
as,
called
quote-unquote,
joint operational
disasters
supervision,
induced
anong mangyayari
entirely
po dyan kung
or
halimbawa
predominantly
hindi po
by
in
human
agreement
activities or
si
choices.
DDR
And I'd
at
like
si
to correct
DOST
the chair
patungkol po
that sounds like
halimbawa
the
sa
epidemic,
hiring ng employees ng
such as
pag-asa.
ideologically
Sino
motivated
kayang mananaig
conflict
sa
or
ganong klaseng
criminality.
sitwasyon?
What is the
Will they
rationale
have to
in
resort
making the proposed
to going to
DDR
court in
exclusive
order to
for
resolve such
natural
conflicts?
disasters?
At ang problema pa po,
Whereas Republic
sa tingin
Act
ko, ay meron
10121 failed
Section 76 na
that we need to
naka-indicate po,
segregate
and
the government
let me read that
response to
portion.
natural disasters
No court
and
except the
human-induced
Supreme Court
disasters.
shall have the powers to
Separating
issue
the definition
an
of
injunction
natural
or
disaster
a
and
TRO
human-induced
against any
disaster
action taken
ultimately
or
leads to the
projects implemented
alarming
by the
consequence
DDR or its
that is
agents
reflected in
pursuant
the
to this
proposed
act.
department's
So ang
mandate
intindi ko po dito ay
that the
tila
Department
po kung
of Disaster
magka-conflict at
Resilience
mapunta sa korte,
will only help
halimbawa
in
si
events
DDR at si
of
DOST,
natural
eh mukha
disaster.
naman pong lopsided
Forsaking
against
communities
DOST
affected by
ang
armed
nangyayari
conflict.
po. Is that a
Evidently,
correct,
Section 4 of House
appreciation?
Bill 5989
Mr.
limits
Speaker,
the
during
powers
one
of the
the,
DDR
meetings
to help
with
only
different agencies
in the
just
instance
recently,
of natural
through Zoom,
disasters. The provision can
there
be
was a
found in the last
proposal,
sentence of Section 4 stating,
proposed
provided
by,
that for human-induced
Solidaridad
disasters,
and
the
the
Department
correct
of the
word,
Interior and
if I'm
Local
not
Government,
mistaken, under
DILG, the
proposed
Department of
amendment
National Defense,
is a
DND,
continuously
the Department
call
of Social
upon,
Welfare and Development, DSWD,
word,
and other
which
relevant
means this
instrumentalities,
agency can
including the
continuously
Armed Forces
call
of the
upon
Philippines,
the different
AFP,
agencies, but
Bureau of
this
Fire
agency
Protection,
will not
BFP,
be
Philippine National Police, PNP,
administratively
Philippine
managing
Coast Guard,
the other
PCG, and Office of
agencies.
Civil Defense,
So,
OCD,
in times of
shall
calamity,
continue to
then
perform
obviously
their functions.
there will be some
Essentially,
leadership
the DDR is
to be
intended
done by
to
this
only
agency as far as
service the
coordination
needs of
and
the
all that.
Filipino
But,
people
in
during
preparing for a
times of
calamity,
natural disaster.
the correct
And will leave the task
idea is
of
to
addressing
continuously call upon
human-induced
so that,
disaster to other
for
government
example,
agencies.
data from Pag-asa, from
But
PhilBox
as we've
can be
experienced
given
from
freely
Republic
to this
Act
agency. But
10121,
there should be no conflict
in
as
which
far as
the
who's in
14th
charge
Congress
of this agency.
had
It will
the
be the
wisdom
same setup
to
as far
recognize
as which agency they belong
that
to.
relief,
They will
recovery,
not
and
be
rehabilitation
under,
from
the
any
direct
disaster
supervision of this agency, but
requires a
only
whole-of-nation
when there is a
approach.
calamity.
Without a coordinating
But
body,
when there
who's
is no
going to do
calamity,
the post-conflict needs
the correct
assessment
term
for the
would be,
recovery and rehabilitation
call
program?
on them,
How will
continuously call
human-induced
on the
disaster
different
affected communities
agencies as far as for
access the Quick
preparation.
Response
So,
Fund
para din po yung
or
magulang,
Calamity Fund of the
nasabi niyo po
national
na
government?
isang ama, isang ina. So,
By
at least
separating
yung
the
dalawa pong
definition of
nag-uusap,
disaster
parehong
to
department
natural and
secretary.
human-induced
So,
and limiting the mandate of the
pwede naman
DDR,
po yung
the
pag-usapan.
proposed
No need to
bill
go to court
leaves
because
a sense
kung sino
of
man po yung, for
uncertainty
example,
and
DOST, for
insecurity
example,
because it
PhilBox
remains
is
to be
under
seen
DOST,
on how the
siya pa rin
national
naman po
government
yung,
can help areas
head
affected
agency
by armed
ng
conflict
PhilBox.
or under threat
So,
of
Mr.
war.
Speaker, Mr. Sponsor,
In retrospect,
you will
House Bill 101,
change
Republic
the
Act
model of joint
101
operational
to 1.
supervision? Is that
Section
what you're
6
saying?
and
Or
Section 7
you continue
gives
to
the NDRRMC and chair its powers,
use the
functions, and
concept of joint
authority
operational
with the general intent
supervision,
and spirit of the
but
law
with
being the protection
qualifiers?
and
Is that what you're
preservation
saying,
of
Mr.
life
Sponsor?
and properties.
Yeah, there is
Special
there will
emphasis
be an
should be given
amendment
to Republic
Section
Act 101 to 1.
which was agreed upon by
Its provision saying for the protection
different
and
agencies
preservation
and
of
the,
life and properties. Because
the word
it
will be
does not constrain
interdepartmental
the
relations
protection and
coordination,
preservation of life and
and then,
properties to natural
interdepartmental
disasters,
relations and exercise
unlike
close
House Bill
coordination with and shall
5989.
continuously call upon
The biggest
the following
disappointment that I
departments.
have
So, hindi na
in
po
the
yung
proposed
wording na
measure is
joint,
that it omits
supervision. It will be an
conflict-threatened areas from being
interdepartmental
protected
relations
by the law,
and coordination. That would be
most
the
of which
wording of the
are found
Section
in the region of
Mr. Speaker.
Mindanao,
Mr. Speaker,
making
Mr. Sponsor,
House Bill
we in the minority
5989
welcome that proposed amendment. Of
anti-Mindanaoan.
course, ang pagdating po ng proper time,
The original disaster
kami
bill,
po ay sasangayon po.
Republic
kung
Act
yan po ay
101 to 1,
na-introduce.
does not
Babanggitin ko lang po sa
discriminate
Section 80.
on whose lives
there
and
is a
properties
proviso here
it shall
which I
protect
believe
and
needs
preserve.
to be clarified. And
I believe, as a
and
general rule,
let me read that
the
portion.
laws that the 18th
Provided
Congress
furthermore that
legislates
the said agencies
should
will be under
equally
the operational
protect
supervision and direct
all
control of
our
the department
citizens.
in anticipation of,
I appeal that this
during,
concern
and
be
as necessary
rectified by the
in the
committee
determination
chairs
of the
and
Secretary of
principal
Disaster
authors.
Resilience
Secondly,
in the aftermath
one
of
clear
emergencies and
objective
disasters.
of the proposed
So,
bill
lumalabas po
is to
dito
rid
ay
the
before,
Office of Civil Defense
during,
of its
and
mandates,
after, dahil nabanggit
eventually
po yung
making the
before, during, and
OCD
after,
an
ay
empty shell.
magkakaroon po
Section 9
ng
of
direct
Republic Act
control
10121
ang
defines
DDR
the
dito
powers and
po
functions of the OCD,
sa
all of
tulad
which
ng
are
Pag-asa and
disaster
PhilBox.
related
So ang tanong ko po,
and will be
since
transferred
you're
to the
talking
DDR.
about before,
Therefore,
during, and after,
what are the
isn't that
powers that
same as
remain with the
all the time,
OCD should
Mr.
HB
Speaker?
5989 be
Mr.
enacted
Speaker,
into law?
the proper amendment will be done
Republic Act
during the
10121,
amendment
Section
period.
8,
And meron
defines
din
the
pong,
primary
amendment
mission of the
doon sa,
OCD as, quote-unquote,
pinopropose. Actually, it was a proposal
administering
of
a comprehensive
Honorable
national
Kimbo
civil defense
that I'm,
and
basing
disaster
the
risk reduction
amendment
and
on.
management program
Meron
by
din pong
providing
proper
leadership
wording
in the
as far as,
continuous
that
development
section will
of
be concerned.
strategic and
So,
systematic approaches, as
it will
well as
be,
measures to
like I said,
reduce
it will be a
the
continuously,
vulnerabilities
to
and
continuously
risks to
call upon.
hazards and
So,
manage the
siguro po,
consequences
during
of disasters.
during
All
the calamity,
functions of
that's
OCD
when the
as stated in Republic
powers of
101,
this, department
will be stripped
implemented,
off
but not,
and
like I
transferred
said, it
to the
was not-
DDR
it's not
as a
before
consequence
a
of
calamity,
House Bill
because we cannot predict it.
5989,
It's always,
with the
always-
exception
we are
of
always in the
a
mode of
quote-unquote
preparation. So it
National
will be properly
Comprehensive
amended,
Civil
Mr.
Defense
Speaker, as far as
Program,
the concern of the Honorable Kimbo.
in which
Mr.
Republic
Speaker,
Act 101
ikinatutuwa ko po
and
na i-consider po
and
ng ating good
House Bill
sponsor
5989 do not
ating
provide a
recommendations
definition
pagdating
for.
po dito sa joint operational supervision. Siguro po,
There is no clear
panghuli na lang po,
definition of the mandate
I
and
just want to
purpose
mention
of the
that
OCD
it is really very
should House
clear
Bill
that
5989
activities of
become
both
law.
If
If the intention of the bill is to strip the
scientific
OCD
and
of its
technical
natural
in nature.
disaster-related mandates
these agencies
and revert
conduct
back to its
scientific
original
research.
function,
So
one must
napakahirap
ask,
po na
what
mapolitika
was
ang
its
ganitong klaseng
original
mga
function?
ahensya.
We
And,
would have to dig
to emphasize po,
7
ang
decades back into
at
history.
pag-asa ay talaga pong mga
The
scientists
Philippine
po,
Law Republic
karamihan
Act
ang empleyado po dyan.
1190
Sa
of the
PHIVOLS
Commonwealth
po, meron silang
era,
7 na empleyadong PhDs.
known as
ang
the Civil
26 po sa
Defense
kanila
Act of
ay
1954,
Masters, of Science.
was the origin of the
May dalawa
OCD
pang PhD
and Civil
na
Defense
in-import from the
Councils,
DOST.
which was
Pagdating
then
naman po
created for
sa
times of
PHIVOLS,
war
meron pong 7
and other
PhDs.
national emergencies.
Ay, sorry, pagdating sa pag-asa,
During the
meron 8
Marcos regime,
PhDs
PD
at
number
meron
1 series of
81 po na,
1972, under the
masters,
Integrated
holders.
Reorganization
So clearly
Plan,
po,
Civil Defense Councils were
mga
retitled to
nerds po
Disaster
dito sa mga
Coordinating
scientific,
Councils.
sa mga
This is
government
confirmed in
agencies na to.
Proclamation
Kaya't,
number 695
mahirap
series
talaga po
1991
na-
in President Corazon
na
Aquino's explanation
mapasailalim po
for
sila
declaration
sa isang liderato na hindi
of the
naman
first
po
day of March
scientific
as Civil
din
Defense
ang
Day.
primary
Now,
mandate. So kinatutuwa ko po na
Considering the
you will consider
history
po
and
the,
transformation of the
proposed
OCD
amendment at the
to
proper
become
time.
the
So, yun na lang
disasters,
po ang
the
aking
country's
huling comment,
disaster
Mr.
coordinating
Speaker,
agency,
Mr. Sponsor,
removal
maraming
of its
salamat po.
functions to address
I'd
natural
like to thank also
disasters
the Honorable
will
Kimbo
render
for,
the OCD
giving
as
us the
irrelevant.
proposal, and I will,
Please take note
I will,
that House Bill number 4,
talk
one
more
of the consolidated
about the other
bills
amendments
under
as far
House
as,
Bill
this,
5989,
section
authored
is concerned at the
by
proper time, Mr.
Speaker Alan
Thank you.
Peter Cayetano
Very
and
good discussion
Deputy
and debate,
Speaker
Majority
Pulong
Leader.
Duterte
Mr. Speaker,
proposes
I move to
that the
recognize the
department shall
Honorable
assume
Muhammad
the
Khalid
powers and
Mapooro
functions of the Office
from
of
the
Civil
1st District
Defense
of Lanao del
OCD,
Norte for
and
this
that all
interpellation.
references to the
Representative Khalid
NDRMMC
Mapooro
and the
is now
OCD in Republic Act
recognized.
10121 shall be understood to refer to the department created under this act, just as proposed Speaker, in colleagues,
uh,
House Bill number 4.
Assalamualaikum
It would
warahmatullahi
have been more
wabarakatuh.
prudent for the bill to absorb the OCD,
Speaker,
its
I'd
duties
like
and
to ask
functions
if
into
the
proposed
author,
Department of Disaster Resilience
and Chair
and not
would allow me
differentiate
to make a
between
short
natural
manifestation
human
and then just
induced
ask one or
disasters,
a few
in which
questions.
the committees have
Certainly,
unfortunately
Mr. Speaker.
disregarded. This bill, House Bill 5989, has no provision to determine what exactly is the function of the OCD
For my manifestation,
after the
I'd
disaster-related
just like
mandates
to
and functions
state
have
on the
been
record
taken from them.
that the province
Should
of
the
Lanao
committee
del
chairs
Norte
and authors be
is
adamant
among the
on
provinces
pursuing
in the Mindanao
the
region
division of the DDR
which
and
suffer
the
from
OCD,
periodic armed
I
conflict.
propose they consider that
Creating
the
the
OCD be
Department
given
of
purpose,
Disaster Resilience,
such as becoming
which
a
addresses
coordinating
solely
agency of the citizens'
natural
armed force
disasters,
or
they
reservists,
consequently
in which, in
limit the
coordination with
assistance
the
from the
DDR,
national government
allows it
during
to
times
access the
of
disaster
war
funds
or
for the
terrorist
purposes
attacks.
of disaster preparedness
The
and
first
response
issue
to
that I
train
have
volunteer responders.
with the proposed bill
Let the
is that it
OCD
redefines
And the
disaster
reservists
as
be
natural
the
disaster,
DDR's proverbial
making the
boots
overall
on the
spirit
ground.
of the proposed law
Now,
exclusive
Mr. Speaker,
to communities
I would like to
affected
thank
by
the
natural
committee chairs
disasters.
and the
What about
principal
provinces
authors,
like Lanao del
especially
Norte,
our chair,
who are under
Chairman
threat
Marby,
of armed conflict,
for adopting my proposed
or cities
amendment to
like
allow
Marawi,
the DDR to
Zamboanga,
provide
Puno,
humanitarian relief
Cotabato,
in the
who
event
may be-
of
who may be
human-induced
made
disasters.
into another
I thank you from the
battlefield
bottom of my heart to the
between
committee chairs
government
and the
forces and armed
um,
groups such as
the-
ISIS
the,
affiliates.
principal authors.
In Republic Act
However,
10121, in its present
Philippine
form,
Disaster
from House
Risk
Bill,
Reduction and Management Act of
in its
2010,
present form,
House
disaster
Bill
is defined in
5989
Section 3H
is restricted
as
from
a serious
assisting in the
disruption of the
rehabilitation
function
and
of a
recovery
community
efforts of the government
or a society
for areas
involving
hit
widespread
with
human,
human-induced disasters.
material, economic, or
stated in
environmental
Section
losses and
31,
impacts,
The
which
department
exceeds the
shall be
ability of the
primarily
affected community
responsible
or
for
society
reconstruction and
to cope
rehabilitation
using its own
in
resources.
the event of a natural
House Bill
disaster. 5989. Human-Induced Resilience Act
omitted
proposes to separate
from
the
the
definition of
rehabilitation
disaster and
and
human-induced
reconstruction efforts of
calamities.
the DDR.
In its definition of
The
disaster,
Department of
found
Disaster
in Section
Resilience
3R,
should also be allowed
it
to help
adopts the
in
Republic Act
rehabilitation and
10121
reconstruction
definition of
areas
disaster
affected by
with
human-induced
an
emergencies.
additional sentence.
so as to normalize the consequences of the
And the
event
additional
as
sentence
quickly
is
as possible,
quote unquote, specifically,
unless otherwise
the department should
specifically
likewise be
indicated in this
responsible
act.
for the
The
reconstruction
term
and
disaster shall
rehabilitation
refer to
of
natural
vital
disaster
infrastructures,
of the
unlike
National
Republic
Road Network
10121
and other
which
national
treats
government
disaster
facilities,
generally
such as national bridges,
as a
public
serious
schools,
disruption
and regional
to our
hospitals
communities.
affected by human-induced
The proposed
disasters.
measure provides
Mr.
a
Speaker,
separate
God forbid,
definition
that
for
we will have war,
human-induced disaster,
and then a bridge
in
is
Section
blown up.
3 PP.
We need the full-blown
quote unquote
assistance of the national
disasters
government
induced
that the bridge
entirely
or
predominantly
and repaired
by
as soon as
human
possible.
activities or
God
choices.
forbid that
And I'd
the
like to
terrorists
correct
take
the
advantage
chair
of this
that
epidemic and
sounds like the
pandemic
epidemic
and target
such as
regional hospitals,
ideologically
which are
motivated
COVID referral
conflict
hospitals,
or
and bomb those
criminality.
hospitals. We need the full
What
force and
is the
assistance of the
rationale
national government
in making
in
the
reconstruction
proposed
and
DDR
rehabilitation process
exclusive
I would
for
hope
natural
that this
disasters?
provision be amended
Whereas
in terms of
Republic
the
Act 10121 failed that we need to segregate
for the DDR
the government
to assist
response
in
to
human-induced,
natural disasters and
as far as
human-induced
rehabilitation
disasters.
and reconstruction is concerned.
Separating the
Lastly,
definition of
to
natural
ensure that
disaster and
all
human-induced
Filipinos can avail
disaster
of the benefits and
ultimately
protection
leads
of the
to the
proposed
alarming
law, the
consequence
DDR mandate should also
that
be
is
without
reflected in the
prejudice to
proposed
the President's
department's
directive
mandate
to address
that the
natural
Department of
human-induced or
Disaster
other
Resilience
disasters will
such
only
as
help
an
in
epidemic
events of
for the
natural
purpose of
disaster,
allowing our president to
forsaking
maximize the full extent of the
communities
executive
affected
when
by
called upon
armed
to
conflict
save and protect Filipino lives.
Evidently,
I
Section
strongly
4
disagree
of
with
House
the
Bill
answer
5989
of the chairman
limits
to
the powers of the
former
DDR
interpolator,
to help
Representative
only
Stella Kimbo,
in the
that you
instance
can find
of
the
natural
palusot
disasters.
to use the DDR.
The provision can
to
be
help
found
in
in
the
the last
epidemic.
sentence of Section
We
4
need
stating
to be
as
provided
certain and
that
as
for
clear and
human-induced
as
disasters
bold as possible,
the Department of the
in
Interior and
crafting the
Local
law.
Government,
The
the
words
ILG,
should
the
be there.
Department of National Defense,
That in the
DND,
DDR
the
mandate,
Department of Social
if the
Welfare and
President
Development,
says, you
DSWD,
go help in
and
this
other
epidemic,
relevant
the DDR
instrumentalities
will be there to help.
including the
If
Armed
the
Forces of the
President says,
Philippines,
you go help
AFP,
in
Bureau
Bureau
of Fire
in
Protection,
Marawi,
BFP,
Cotabato, or
Philippine
areas
National
hit
Police,
by armed
PNP,
conflict, the
Philippine
DDR
Coast
will
Guard,
go there and help.
PCG,
It should not be
and Office of Civil
interpreted
Defense,
in between
OCD,
the lines or in
shall
between the
continue
words.
to
It
perform
should be
their
in black and
functions.
white.
Essentially,
and
the
enacted into
DDR
law
is intended
that when the
to
President
only
gives the directive,
service the needs
DDR will
of the
respond
Filipino
and
people during times
appropriately
of natural
to
disaster,
assist in non
and will leave the task
disasters.
of addressing
Now,
human-induced
disaster to other government
All my
agencies
concerns have been stated
but as we've
by way of
experienced
manifestation
from Republic
and I've
Act
also
10121
sent letters to the committee
in
chairs,
which I
the
hope
14th
that they will
Congress
consider had the
um,
wisdom
during the
to
period of
recognize
plenary amendments
that
because those
relief,
letters
recovery, and
and suggested
rehabilitation
amendments will
from
address my
any
concerns.
disaster
But
requires
I'd like to ask
whole
just a
of
few more
nation
questions
approach.
to the honorable chairman.
Without a
of
coordinating
Government
body,
Reorganization.
who's
Because we
going
really
to
need
do
know
the post-conflict
what
needs
exactly
assessment
is your plan
for the
with
recovery and
Office of Civil
rehabilitation
Defense?
program? How will human-induced
what's the
disaster
intent of the
affected
bill?
communities
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask
access the quick
the,
response fund
the
or
chairman
calamity
of,
fund
Government
of the
Reorganization
national
to
government?
answer this question.
by separating the definition of disaster to
Yes,
natural
Mr.
and
Speaker,
human-induced
the Office
and
of the Civil
limiting the
Defense
mandate of
will
the DDR,
retain,
the
some
proposed
of its,
bill
personnel,
leaves a sense
which
of
are
uncertainty
not
and
related to
insecurity
the
because it
purpose
remains
of
to
this
be
bill.
seen on
meaning
how the national government can help areas
for the,
affected by armed conflict
human-induced,
or under
they will
threat
retain
of war.
their personnel.
In
However,
retrospect,
I agree that most of the assets
House
will,
Bill 101
will go
or sorry,
to the,
Republic Act
this department. But, let me
10121,
just say
Section
that,
6 and Section 7
I
gives the
received proposal
NDRRMC
of
and
the,
chair its powers, functions, and
Honorable,
authority
Dimaporo,
with the general
and,
intent and spirit of the
I
law
agree that,
being
we shall
the
clarify
protection
the,
and preservation of life and
sections
property.
in which
Special
to clarify
emphasis
that the
should be given to
epidemics
Republic
should be
Act 10121,
in
its provision
in this
saying
And
for the
that was
protection
the whole
and
plan
preservation
on why,
of life and properties.
I was
Because
waiting for the
it
right
does
moment
not
for
constrain the protection and
amendment.
preservation of life
At any
and
rate,
properties
the
to natural
concern of,
disasters,
Congressman Dimaporo,
unlike House Bill
in
5989.
this bill on Section
The
31,
biggest disappointment that I have
reconstruction
in
and
the proposed
rehabilitation
measure
powers of the
is that it
department,
omits
it does not
conflict-threatened
limit
areas from being
the,
protected by the law,
department
most of which
from
are found in the
helping,
region of Mindanao, making
human-induced
House Bill
disasters, such as, for example,
5989
of what happened in
anti-Mindanaoan.
It says that
The original disaster bill,
it will be
Republic Act
responsible in an event of a
10121,
disaster,
does not discriminate
but it does not
on whose lives
prevent it
and
from
properties it shall protect
doing
and preserve.
response,
And I
efforts
believe,
as far as
as a general rule,
human-induced
the
disasters.
laws
In
that
fact,
the 18th Congress
this
legislate
department will be
should
obliged,
equally protect
obliged to help out
all
in any
our
type of,
citizens.
disasters. At any rate,
I
for
appeal that
example,
this
in
concern
Marawi,
be rectified by the
there was a
committee
separate
chairs
fund,
and principal authors.
given to the
Secondly,
Marawi rehabilitation,
one
which
clear
amounts to
objective of the
3.5
proposed bill
billion
is to rid
pesos. So
the Office
in
of Civil
times
Defense of its mandates, eventually
human-induced,
making the
disasters,
OCD
this
an
government
empty
does
shell.
not
Section 9 of
take
Republic
off
Act
its,
10121
responsibilities as
defines
far as
the powers and functions of the
those,
OCD,
calamities
all
are
of which
concerned.
are
But, this
disaster-related
specifically,
and will be
I agree,
transferred to the
specifically,
DDR.
addresses natural
Therefore,
disasters in times of preparation.
what are the powers that
in
remain
times
with the
of,
OCD should HB
resilience,
5989 be enacted
and,
into law?
in times of response, it does not limit
Republic Act
its
10121,
capacity
Section
to help
8
out in any
defines
type of
the primary
humanitarian,
mission of the OCD
assistance.
as,
So,
quote unquote,
I agree
administering a
that, we should
comprehensive
clarify
national civil
some of
defense
the
and
sections in
disaster
this,
risk
bill,
reduction
and I
and
have received
management
the,
program by providing
the,
leadership in the continuous development of
comments
strategic
of,
and systematic approaches,
Representative
as
Dimaporo,
well as measures
and we
to
will
reduce
consider it
the
during the,
vulnerabilities and
amendment
risks
period.
to hazards and manage the
Representative
consequences of
Dimaporo.
disasters.
Yes,
All
Mr. Speaker,
functions of
I would like
OCD,
to
as
get
stated in Republic
clarification.
101,
Do
will
you
be
change your
stripped
position
off
from
and
a
transferred to the DDR
manifestation to
as a
a
consequence of
interpolator?
House Bill 5989, with
Um,
the exception of
Well, yes, I would
quote,
like to
unquote,
just actually not
National
interpolate, but get
Comprehensive
clarification
Civil
because I might be
Defense
reading
Program, a different bill, in which Republic Act 101 and
Representative
and
Dimaporo, please
House
proceed.
Bill 5989 do
thank
not
you,
provide
Mr.
a
Speaker,
definition
because
for.
Section 31 in the bill that I have with me
There is no
reads
clear
as
definition
reconstruction
of the
and
mandate
rehabilitation
and purpose
powers
of
of the
the OCD.
department.
Should House
The
Bill
department shall be
5989
primarily
become law.
responsible for
If
reconstruction
the intention
and
of the bill
rehabilitation
is to
in
strip
the
the
event
OCD of its
a
natural disaster-related
That's what
mandates
worries me, Mr.
and revert
Speaker.
back to its original
Uh,
function, one must ask,
Because you say
what
there
was
specifically
its original
and this will be
function?
enacted into law.
We
In
would
the
have
event
to
of a
dig
natural disaster,
seven
we might there's no
decades
guarantee once
back
it becomes
into history.
enacted
The Philippine
into
Law Republic
that,
Act 1190
COA,
of the Commonwealth
other
era,
agencies will
known as the Civil
misinterpret,
Defense Act of
the intent of the law.
1954,
that
was
yes,
the origin of the
Department
OCD
Disaster
and Civil
Resilience
Defense
can,
Councils,
help everybody.
which was then created
If
for
that's the
times
case,
of
then we should
war
place that in the law.
and other
But
national
unfortunately,
emergencies.
in the section that I'm reading,
During
and
the
I want
Marcos
to
regime,
confirm if this
PD
is
number
the
1
correct,
series of 1972,
bill, maybe
under
I have an
the
older version.
Integrated Reorganization
Section
Plan,
31 reads,
Civil Defense
the
Councils were
department shall be
retitled to
primarily
disaster
responsible for
coordinating
reconstruction and
councils.
rehabilitation in the
This is
event
confirmed
of
in
a
Proclamation
natural
number
disaster.
695 series 1991
So I'd like to
in
confirm
President
with the,
Corazon Aquino's explanation for declaration
if that
of
is
the first day of March as
Section
Civil Defense Day.
31 that
Now,
he was talking about,
Considering
he
the history and
stated
transformation
that,
of the OCD,
the Department of
to
Disaster
become
can
the
help
disasters,
outside
the
of
country's
not just natural
disaster
disasters, but other
coordinating
forms
agency,
of disaster,
removal
especially in
of
an
its
epidemic.
functions to
If I may
address
ask
natural disasters,
the chairman
will
to
render
read,
the OCD as
into the record the
irrelevant.
Section 31.
Please
in
take
full,
note that
on
House
what he
Bill
was
number
citing,
4,
because if I
one
am
of the
wrong, then,
consolidated bills
submit,
under
Mr.
House
Chair.
Bill 5989,
Mr.
authored
Speaker, it is the correct
by
section
Speaker
31.
Alan
It says
Peter
reconstruction
Cayetano
and
and
rehabilitation
Deputy
powers of
Speaker
the
Pulong
department.
Duterte
The department shall be
proposes
primarily
that the
responsible
department
for
shall
reconstruction
assume
and
the
rehabilitation
powers and
in the event
functions
of
of
a
the Office
natural
of Civil
disaster.
Defense,
In
OCD,
undertaking
and that
reconstruction
all
and rehabilitation
references
efforts,
to the
the department shall, as much as
NDRMMC
possible,
and the
retrofit
OCD in Republic Act
structures to make them
10121
more
shall be
resistant
understood
and
to refer
resilient
to the
to the
department
effect
created
of
under this act,
natural disaster.
just as
Like I
proposed
said, it
in
does not
House Bill number 4.
limit,
It would
does
have
not
been more
prevent
prudent for the
this
bill to
department
absorb the
from,
OCD, its duties and
for
functions
example,
into the
repairing a
proposed
bridge
Department of Disaster
that
Resilience,
was
and not differentiate
damaged
between
by
natural and
human-induced,
human-induced disasters,
activity,
in which the
this
committees
department
have
shall
unfortunately
be
disregarded.
mandated to repair the bridge
This
because it
bill,
is part
House
of the
Bill 5989,
rehabilitation,
has no
not just
provision
of
to
the
determine
human-induced
what
calamity,
exactly
but
is the
also
function of the
any
OCD
natural
after the
calamity that's going to
disaster-related
happen in
mandates
the
and
future.
functions
So,
have been taken from them.
it
Should
really
the
does
committee
not
chairs and
prevent
authors
all
be
the
adamant
efforts,
on pursuing
regarding
the
natural
division of the
disasters
DDR and
can
the
be
OCD, I propose they consider
can be
that the
done,
OCD be given
in
purpose,
helping the
such as becoming
human-induced
a coordinating agency of the
activities as far
Citizens
as
Armed Force
disasters
or
are concerned,
reservists,
Mr. Speaker.
in which,
But
in coordination with the DDR,
in
allows it
times,
to access the
in
disaster
period
funds for the purposes of
amendments,
disaster
I would
preparedness and
gladly
response to train volunteer
I would
responders.
gladly
Let the OCD
amend any
and
of
the
the
reservists
sections just to
be
make
the
sure that
DDR's
the
proverbial
good
boots on the
Representative
ground.
Dimaporo is
Now, Mr.
satisfied
Speaker,
with what
I
I'm
would
saying,
like to thank the committee
regarding
chairs
the
and the
issue,
principal
Mr. Speaker.
authors, especially our chair, Chairman Marvy,
Thank you,
for
Mr. Speaker. May I be
adopting my
recognized for
proposed
my
amendment
closing
to allow
remarks?
the DDR to provide humanitarian relief
Please proceed.
in the event of
Yes,
human-induced
Mr. Speaker,
disasters.
I'd like
I
to
thank you from the bottom
Chairman
of my heart to the committee
Marvy,
chairs and the
for his
kind consideration,
principal
and I
authors.
just like to place it into this record.
However,
That
in its
into the
present
record,
form,
that from
from
House
get-go,
Bill, which
this
bill,
in its
when,
present
the
form,
committees decided
House Bill
to split
5989
and
is
natural
restricted
disasters
from assisting in
uh,
the
really
rehabilitation
struck a
and
wrong chord
recovery
with me.
efforts of the government for
coming
areas
from
hit
a
with
province that was
human-induced
attacked
disasters.
by
As
the
stated in Section
MILF,
31,
I wouldn't want
department shall
anything
be
like that to
primarily
happen again to my
responsible
constituents
for reconstruction
and feel
and
that the government
rehabilitation
cannot be there to help
in
us
the
out.
event of a
So
natural
I really
disaster. Once
thank,
again,
and
human-induced
appreciate
disasters
the
omitted
kind
and
consideration
excluded
of
from
the
the
chairman of government
rehabilitation
reorganization
and reconstruction
that he will
efforts
help
of the
make the
DDR.
law as law's
The
intent
Department
as
of
clear as
Disaster
possible,
Resilience
that
should
the
also be
DDR
allowed
can
to
help
help in the
everybody.
rehabilitation
Because
and
this is also
reconstruction
about
of areas
us being
affected
able
by
to tap
human-induced
government
emergencies.
funds such as the
so as to
disaster fund,
normalize the
and we want
consequences
to
of
make
the
sure
event
that we will
as
not be
quickly as
excluded in the
possible.
region of Mindanao. Because
Specifically,
as you can see from
the
the Holo
department should
bombings,
likewise be
we still have
responsible for the
strife and conflict in the area.
reconstruction
And
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
rehabilitation
Thank you, Honorable
of vital
Chairman.
and
Infrastructures
to the
of the
members
National Road
18th
Network
Congress.
and other national government
Rest assured,
facilities, such as national
Representative
bridges,
Dimaporo,
public
that the
schools,
Republic will
and
always
regional
protect
hospitals
all its,
affected by
sovereign
human-induced
states, especially
disasters.
Marawi.
Mr. Speaker,
and
God forbid
The thing
that we
happened
will
in
have
Marawi
war
will not
and then a
ever
bridge
happen
is
again.
blown up. We
Majority
need the
Leader.
full-blown assistance of the national government that the
Mr.
bridge
Speaker,
can
I move
be
to recognize the Honorable
rectified
Sergio
and
Dago
repaired
of
as soon as
Prefect
possible.
Archivist.
God forbid that
Representative
the
Sergio
terrorists take
Dago
advantage of this
is hereby
epidemic and
recognized.
pandemic and target
Thank you,
regional
Mr.
hospitals,
Speaker.
which are COVID
Honorable
referral
sponsor.
hospitals and
Good
bomb
afternoon,
those
everyone.
hospitals. We need the full force and assistance of the national government in the
Would the
reconstruction and
distinguished
rehabilitation
chairman of the
process.
Committee on
I
Government
would
Reor
hope
and
that this
sponsor
provision
of
be
House Bill
amended in terms
5989
of the
yield to some clarificatory questions from this
ability for
representation.
the DDR to assist in
Certainly, Mr.
human-induced
Speaker.
disasters as
Thank
far
you,
as
Mr. Speaker,
rehabilitation
Mr.
and
Sponsor.
reconstruction is concerned. Lastly,
Mr.
to
Sponsor,
ensure that
would you
all
agree
Filipinos
to
can
this
avail of the benefits and
representation
protection of the
that
proposed law, the
electricity is
DDR
one
mandate
of
should
the
also be
primary
without
and
prejudice to the President's
essential
directive to
resources
address
that needs
natural,
to be
human-induced, or other
prioritized in its
disasters,
restoration
such as
in
an
the
epidemic,
aftermath of a
for the
calamity or
purpose of
disaster
allowing our President
like
to maximize the
typhoon.
full extent of the executive when
I
called
agree,
upon
Mr.
to
Speaker.
save and protect Filipino lives.
Thank you,
I strongly
Mr.
disagree with the
Sponsor.
answer of
As a
the
matter of
chairman
fact, the
to
restoration of
former
electricity lines
interpolator,
should be
Representative Stella
included
Kimbo,
in one of
that
the
we can
initial
find
responses
palusot
of the
to
government
use the
in the
DDR to
aftermath
help
of a
in the
disaster.
epidemic
to ensure
need to
swift
be
recovery of
certain and
damaged
as clear
areas.
and as bold as
Electricity
possible
lines are
crafting
key
the law.
infrastructure,
The words should be there.
including that of
That in
the
the
human
DDR
interest,
mandate, if
as
the president says,
mentioned
you
a
go
while
help
ago by
in
the
this
Honorable
epidemic, the DDR
Khaled
will be there to
Dimaporo,
help.
because
If the
our
president says,
electric
you go help
cooperatives are
in Hulog,
one of the
Marawi,
sector who
Cotabato, or areas
help
hit by armed conflict,
Marawi
the
after
DDR
its siege,
should go there and help. It should not be
restoring the power lines
interpreted
there
in
of
between the lines or
Lasurico.
in between the words.
So it
should
is
be in
really
black and
needed
white
in the
in the
normalization
bill
of
and
basic
enacted into
services
law
and
that
necessities.
when the president gives
Electricity
the
allows the
directive, the
victims or
DDR will
affected
respond
population
and act
to immediately
appropriately
avail their lighting
to
needs
assist in
and other activities
non-natural
necessary
disasters.
for survival to
Now,
function. Communications also, Mr.
all
Speaker,
my
Honorable
concerns
Sponsor,
have been stated by
such
way
as
of
phones and gadgets
manifestations,
that are
and I've
essential
also
in
sent
modern
letters to the
times
committee
needs
chairs,
electricity,
which I hope
so
that they
that there is
will
an open
consider
and continuous line of communication
during the
to ensure
period
swift
of plenary
action
amendments
for
those
rescue
letters
or
and
assistance to
suggested
people
amendments
in
will
need.
address my concerns.
Therefore,
But I'd
Mr.
like to
Speaker,
ask just a
Mr.
few more questions
Sponsor,
to the
I have
Honorable
observed
of Government
that
Reorganization, because we really
in
need to
the
know
proposed
what
measure,
exactly is
there
the
is no
plan with the
provision
Office of Civil
in
Defense.
the being mentioned,
What's
which
the intent
includes
of the bill?
the
Mr. Speaker,
prioritization of
I'd like
power
to ask
restoration.
the
Specifically,
chairman of
it does not
Government
mention the
Reorganization to
role
answer this.
of the National Electrification Administration
Yes,
and
Mr.
electric
Speaker, the
cooperatives
Office
in
of
the
the Civil
immediate
Defense will
rehabilitation
retain
of distribution
some
and
of its
transmission lines
personnel
to ensure
which
immediate
are
availability
not
and
related
steady
to
of supply
the
of electricity
purpose of
in
this bill.
affected areas.
Meaning
Tama po ba yung observation ko, Honorable Sponsor?
human-induced, they will retain
Wala po tayong
their
provision na
personnel.
ganun.
However, I agree that most of the
Mr.
assets
Speaker,
will,
wala pong
will
nakalagay
go
specifically
to the
na
this
provision na
department.
ganon dito sa
But
bill na ito dahil
let me just say
there is an existing Republic
I
Act
received the
11039,
proposal of the
an act institutionalizing
Dimaporo,
the electric
and,
cooperatives emergency
I
and
agree
resiliency
that
fund
we shall
and
clarify
appropriating funds
the,
therefore, meaning
sections
meron po
in
kasing
which
separate na
to
batas
clarify that the epidemics should
para
be
dito
included
sa mga
in this
electric
bill.
cooperatives.
And that was
the whole plan
na nangangailangan
on
ng
why,
tulong
during and before
I was waiting for
a
the right
calamity.
moment for
So,
the
kaya po hindi nakalagay dito
the
sa bill na ito
amendments.
specifically.
At any rate,
yung
the
minention
the
ng
concern
ating,
of the
Honorable,
Congressman
Nagoo.
Dimaporo
Mr. Speaker,
in this bill on
distinguished
Section 31,
sponsor, I agree
reconstruction and
that there is
rehabilitation
an
powers
existing
of the
law
department,
passed in the 17th Congress, Republic Act 11039, the Electric Cooperative Emergency Resiliency Fund.
such as, for
But
example,
the fund being mentioned in that law only covers the restoration and rehabilitation of an electric cooperative's damaged infrastructures in areas affected by calamities or disaster, whether natural or humanly induced. Ang the problem, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, is that even if the lines of the distribution utilities, particularly electric cooperatives, will be restored using the funds from ECRF, but if the victims who are still in the process of rebuilding their homes and other social needs, do not have funds to buy or procure the house wiring materials, still they could not connect to that line and they could not avail electricity. So, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, would you agree with this representation that it is necessary for us also to include provision in the proposed measures that will eliminate delay in the restoration of electricity, particularly the houses or the lighting, electricity lighting needs of the victims?
Comments of Mr. Speaker, from what I understand, and for the record, the Honorable Dago amendment period sent me a letter regarding his
Representative
concern.
Puro.
If I understand
Yes,
it correctly,
Mr.
it is
Speaker,
about
I would like to
this
get
department
clarification.
providing
Do you
electrical
change your
wiring
position from
for
a
households
manifestation to
under
a
the
interpolator?
cooperative sector. And I read the proposal. I'm still studying.
Well, yes, I would like
with
to just
the,
actually
other
not interpolate,
authors,
but get clarification because I might be
issue
reading
is
a different bill.
the cooperatives and other electrical power
Representative Dimaporo, please proceed.
companies are
Yeah.
private in nature.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Speaker,
I'm
because
still trying to
Section
reconcile
31
whether,
in the bill that I have with
DDR
me
can
reads
can
as
provide,
reconstruction and rehabilitation powers of
assistance,
the department.
for instance, like
The
wiring to a
department shall be
private
primarily
company.
responsible
But
for
nevertheless,
reconstruction and
if
rehabilitation
there is a donation
in the event
to this
of a
department
natural disaster.
regarding
That's what
wiring and
worries
other
me,
electrical
Mr. Speaker.
components,
Uh,
equipment,
Because you
obviously
say
the
there
department
specifically, and this will
can
be
help
enacted
as
into
far
law,
as
in the event of a natural
the
disaster,
rehabilitation
you know,
and
we might, there's no
preparation
guarantee
for,
once it
the
becomes,
concerns of the
enacted into
Honorable
law
Dago.
that,
Like I said, I'm
that
still
the
studying the
COA,
proposal of the Honorable Dago
other
because
agencies
of the
will
nature of the
misinterpret,
private nature
you know,
of
the
the
intent of the law.
cooperatives,
That yes, the
electric
Department of
cooperatives and
Disaster
other
Resilience can
industries.
help
It might
everybody.
create a
If that's the case,
precedent
then we
as
should
far
place
as
that in the
other
law.
utilities.
But unfortunately, in the
meaning
section that
not
I'm
only
reading, and I want to
electrical,
confirm if
wires,
this is the
but
correct
also water
bill,
lines
maybe I
will
have an
be,
older version.
included
Section 31 reads,
in this bill. So
the department shall be
I beg
primarily
the
responsible
indulgence
for
of the
reconstruction and
Honorable Dago as far
rehabilitation
as,
in the event of
his
a
concern.
natural disaster.
I will coordinate with his office.
So I'd like to confirm
and,
it with
make
the
proper amendment when the time
chairman,
comes.
if
when
that
it's time
is
for the
the
amendment proper,
section
Mr. Speaker.
31 that he was talking about,
Mr. Speaker,
where he
distinguished
stated
sponsor,
that
gusto ko
the
lang pong
Department of Disaster
ipaliwanag
can help
na
outside of
hindi
not just
po
natural
para
disasters, but other
sa
forms
mga
of
electric
disaster,
cooperatives,
especially
yung
an
electrical
epidemic. If I may ask
materials
the
na
chairman
gusto
to
nating
read into the record
sama
section 31
na
in full,
magiging part of the
on what he was
assistance
citing,
na
because
ibibigay
if I am wrong,
ng,
then
ng
I submit,
department.
Mr. Chair.
Itong mga materialis na to ay
It is the correct
ibibigay
section,
po
31.
doon
It
sa
says
mga
reconstruction
kabahayan,
and rehabilitation
yung mga tao
powers of
na
the
biktima.
department. The
Ang
department shall be
sinasabi ko po
primarily
kanina,
responsible
yung
for
Republic Act
reconstruction and rehabilitation in the
11039,
event of a natural
yung
disaster.
pondo na yun
In
is
undertaking
only intended
reconstruction and
para sa
rehabilitation
distribution
efforts, the
system ng
department
electric
shall, as much as
cooperatives.
possible,
Yes, I
retrofit
agree.
structures
Electric
to make them
cooperatives are
more
private,
resistant and
but
resilient to the effects
but
natural
Congress
disasters.
recognized
Like
the
I said,
fact
it
that
does not
electric cooperatives are non-stock, non-profit.
department.
Unlike other
For
private
example,
distribution
repairing a bridge
utilities, the rates
that
of
was,
electric cooperatives does not include
damaged by
cost for rehabilitation. But in the private utilities, that is part of the cost that they recovered from the consumers, because electric cooperatives are created under the Rural Electrification Program of the government. This is a rural electrification program, and electric cooperatives is only used as a vehicle to implement the rural electrification of the countryside program since 1969. Kaya po, nagkaroon po ng batas na yung rehabilitasyon ng linya ay ipipinance po ng government. But in the case of DDR, ang tinutukoy ko po, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, sayang po yung linya na kahit naitayo na namin ulit, pero yung mga tao na biktima na gumagawa ng mga panibagong bahay, mga maliliit, kadalasan ang biktima dito, mga maliliit po ang bahay. Ang problema, wala silang pambili kahit dalawang bulb,
Thank you,
tapos
Mr. Speaker. May I
10
be
metro
recognized for
na
my closing
wiring.
remarks?
So, kaya sayang din po yung pondo ng gobyerno pag,
Yes, Mr.
pagtayo ng
I'd
bagong
like to
linya,
thank,
but
Chairman,
the beneficiaries ay
for
hindi
his,
rin po nakaabel
kind
dahil
consideration.
wala silang pambili.
And
So,
I'd just like
ang
to place
target
it
po ng
into this
department bibigyan man lang
into the
sila
record
ng
that
house
from the very
wiring.
get-go,
Ang ginagawa
this
po ngayon,
bill,
Mr.
when,
Speaker,
the
ganong
committee
sponsor,
decided to split
yung
human
sitio
and
electrification program
natural
po natin
disasters,
ay
really
nasa
struck
General
a wrong chord
Appropriations
with me.
Act annually. Libre po
Coming
sila ng
from
dalawang
a
ilaw
province that was
at
attacked
isang
by
outlet.
the
Yun din
MILF,
po ang
I
gusto
wouldn't
kong
want
mangyari
anything like
sa
that to happen
department.
again to my
Kahit bigyan lang ng ilang
and feel
metro
that the
na
government
materialis,
cannot be there to help us
makapag-umpisa
out.
lang sila
So
isa-dalawang
I
ilaw.
really
This is
think
intended for the
and
victims,
appreciate
Mr.
the
Speaker,
kind
Mr. Sponsor,
consideration
not for
of
the
the
electric
chairman of government
cooperatives.
reorganization that he will
Mr.
help
Speaker, now I
make the law
understand the
as
concern of
law's
the Honorable
intent
Dagoc.
as
It is
clear
me-
as possible,
for the
that the DDR can help
assistance to the,
everybody.
affected
Because this is also
by,
about us being able
the
to tap
calamity.
government
So, meron
funds
naman
such
pong
as the
ibang mga
disaster fund.
pamamaraan,
And we want
gaya
to make
po
sure
ng,
that we will not be
local,
excluded in the region of Mindanao. Because
the
as you can
LGUs,
see from
meron
the
po
Holo
silang mga
bombings,
calamity
we
funds
still have
na
strife and
pwedeng
conflict
ibili
in the area.
ng
Thank you, Mr.
mga,
Speaker. Thank you, Honorable
wiring
Chairman,
materials
and
para po ibigay
to
sa
the
kanilang mga
members of the 18th
constituents.
Congress.
And I will make an
Rest
amendment
assured,
on this bill na
Representative De
ang
Maporo, that the
departamentong ito
Republic
ay
will
pwede
always
rin magbigay
protect all its
ng additional
sovereign
funds
states,
sa mga
especially
LGUs
Marawi.
para madagdagan po ang
And
kanilang calamity
The thing
fund.
that happened in
So
Marawi
isa
will
po yun
not
sa
ever
nakikita kong
happen
solusyon
again.
sa concern na
Majority
Honorable
Leader.
Dagoc na it can be
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize
through
the
the
Honorable
local
Sergio
government
Dagoc of
units as
APEC
far as
Party List.
identifying who
Representative
these,
Sergio Dagoc is hereby
recipients are.
recognized.
And I will
Thank
try
you,
to see
Mr.
if we
Speaker,
can make
Honorable Sponsor.
an
Good
amendment
afternoon,
or
everyone.
accommodation to the request of the Honorable Dagoc. Because like I said earlier,
Would the
meron
distinguished
naman po
chairman
mga
of the
donate
Committee
ng mga
on
electrical
Government
wires
Reor
sa
and
departamento nito,
sponsor
which
of House Bill
particles,
5989
ay wala naman
yield
pong
to some clarificatory
sinasabing
questions
pinagbabawal
from
ang
this
distribution
representation?
ng mga ganitong klaseng
Certainly, Mr.
pagtulong
Speaker.
sa mga ating kababayan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. Thank you for that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. Would you agree to this representation? That electricity is one of the primary and essential resources that needs to be prioritized in its restoration in the aftermath of a calamity or disaster. Hindi naman lahat ng local government units, lalong-lalo na po sa mga third class municipalities and as a matter of fact, the restoration of electricity lines should be included in one of the initial responses of the government now in the aftermath of a disaster to ensure swift recovery of damaged areas. Units, pag tinamaan po, ang ilauna po talaga ng LGU, including gamot at iba pa. So, kaya po mentioned a while ago, may nagkakaroon ako ng pagkakataon na maidulog because habang ako po ay nagiging kinatawan sa Kongreso, one of the sector who held on sa ilang taon na experience na nakikita ko, I hope restoring the power lines there will consider those amendments in the proper time. It is really needed in the normalization of basic services and necessities. Electricity allows the victims or affected population to immediately avail their lighting needs and other activities necessary to survival to function. Communications also, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sponsor, such as phones and gadgets that are essential in modern times needs electricity so that there is an open and continuous line of communication to ensure swift action for rescue or assistance to people in need. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, I have observed that in the proposed measure, there is no provision
thank you, Mr.
in
Speaker.
the
Good afternoon to all
which
our
includes the
and
prioritization
also to
of power
our
restoration.
good sponsor.
Specifically,
So would the
it
sponsor,
does
Mr.
not
Speaker,
mention
yield
the
to
role
some of my
of the National
questions
Electrification
and comments?
Administration and electric cooperatives in the immediate rehabilitation of distribution and
Una-una,
transmission
Mr.
lines
Speaker,
to ensure
magko-comment lang muna ako, no?
immediate
General comment
availability
po dito sa
and steady
House
of
Bill
supply of
5989.
electricity in affected
So
areas.
tila halos
Tama
lahat
po
ay
ba
gusto
yung
natin
observation
gawan
ko,
ng departamento o
Honorable
bagong
Sponsor?
ahensya. Department of Disaster
wala po tayong
Resilience,
provision na ganun.
mayroon for Filipinos overseas and
Speaker, wala
foreign
pong nakalagay
employment,
specifically
Department of Water,
provision na
Traffic
ganun dito
Crisis,
sa bill na ito
Interagency
dahil,
Management,
there
etc.
is an existing
Sa lahat ng ito,
Republic
Mr.
Act
Speaker, sinasabi na itatayo ang
11039,
department o
an
ahensya
act
bilang
institutionalizing
solusyon sa mga
the electric
problema
cooperatives
halimbawa ng
emergency
OFW,
and resiliency
mahal at
fund
maruming tubig,
and appropriate
traffic at
funds
iba pa.
therefore.
Pero
Meaning,
nakikita natin na
meron
bukod
po
sa
kasing
nagre-resulta
separate
ng
na
redundancy lang na
na
mga ito,
para dito
hindi talaga
sa
nasasagot
mga
ang mga underlying
electric
problems.
cooperatives
Isinasantabi lang ang mga hinaing ng mga mamamayan tulad halimbawa, Mr. Speaker, ng mga OFW na walang malapitan tuwing nagkakaproblema sila sa labas ng bansa. Sa Maynilad at Manila Water, sa EDSA at iba pa, sa
Mr.
pangakong
Speaker,
andyan na yung bagong ahensya
distinguished sponsor,
at siya ang sisisihin
I agree
o kanyang
that
diretso
there is
o
an existing law
superficial
passed in the
solutions so deeply
17th
rooted
Congress,
issues. Kabalat lang
Republic
pero
Act
puro papel ang inihahatag nating mga
11039,
solusyon
the Electric
sa ating mga
Cooperative
mamamayan.
Emergency
Ang masama, these are
Resiliency
real life
Fund.
hardships na
But
araw-araw na
the
cargo ng
fund
mga
being
Filipino.
mentioned in that
Pero
law
papel lang ay
only
binibigay natin sa
covers
kanila.
the restoration
Halimbawa, Mr.
and
Speaker,
rehabilitation
itinatayo
of
ang
an electric
itinayo ang
cooperative's
Department of Human
damaged
Settlements and
infrastructures
Urban
in
Development.
areas affected
Pero
by
nung huling budget
calamities or
deliberations,
disaster,
tayo dito
whether
sa
natural or
Kongreso,
humanly
nagbigay ba
induced.
tayo ng karampatang budget para sa pagpapatayo ng abot-kayang pabahay?
The problem,
Ang hekutibo,
Mr. Speaker,
ano na sa
Mr.
mga
Sponsor, is that
sa mga aligasyon ukol sa
even
korupsyon
if the
at iba
lines
pang mga
of
kababalaghan
the
sa housing
distribution
projects
utilities,
na nagresulta
particularly
sa
electric
pagkasayang
cooperatives,
ng
will
public
be
funds na
restored
supposedly so livable and
using the
decent housing
funds
units.
from ECRF.
Nakikreate ba tayo
But
ng enough number
if the
of plantilla
victims
items
who
para
are
sa
still
personnel ng
in the
existing
process of
agencies
rebuilding
para
their
sapat
homes
na nakatugon
and
ang mga
other
ahensya sa
social needs,
respective
no,
mandates nila?
do not have
What have you
funds
done decisively to address the housing
buy
backlog
or procure
and to
the
eradicate poverty and
house wiring materials?
homelessness?
Still, they
Kaya
would
po,
not connect
Mr.
to
Speaker,
that line
uulitin po
and they could
namin,
not avail
itong Department of Disaster and
electricity.
Resilience.
So, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, would you agree with this representation that it is necessary for us also to include provision in the proposed measures that will eliminate delay in the restoration of electricity, particularly the houses or the lighting, electricity lighting needs of the victim, electricity. So, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, would you agree with this representation that it is necessary?
It is about this department providing electrical wiring for households under the cooperative sector. And I read the proposal. I'm still studying it with the other authors because the issue is the cooperatives and other electrical power companies are private in nature. So I'm still trying to reconcile whether DDR can provide assistance, for instance, like wiring to a private company. But nevertheless, if there is a donation to this department regarding wiring and other electrical components, equipment, obviously the department can help as far as the rehabilitation and preparation for the concerns of the Honorable Dagook. Like I said, I'm still studying the proposal of the Honorable Dagook because of the nature of the private nature of the cooperatives, electric cooperatives and other industries. It might create a precedent as far as other utilities, meaning not only electrical wires, but also water lines will be included in this bill. So I beg the indulgence of the Honorable Dagook as far as he's concerned. I will coordinate with his office and make the proper amendment when the time comes, when it's time for the amendment proper, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, gusto ko lang pong ipaliwanag na hindi po para sa mga electric cooperatives yung electrical materials na gusto nating isama na magiging part of the assistance na ibibigay ng department. Itong mga materials na to ay ibibigay po doon sa mga kabahayan, yung mga tao na biktima. Ang sinasabi ko po kanina, yung Republic Act 11039, yung pondo na yon is only intended para sa distribution system ng electric cooperatives. Yes, I agree, electric cooperatives are private, but but Congress recognized the fact that electric cooperatives are non-stock, non-profit. Unlike other private distribution utilities, the rates of electric cooperatives does not include cost for rehabilitation. But in the private utilities, that is part of the cost that they recovered from the consumers, because electric cooperatives are created under the Rural Electrification Program of the government. This is a rural electrification program, and electric cooperatives is only used as a vehicle to implement the rural electrification of the countryside program since 1969. Kaya po, nagkaroon po ng batas na yung rehabilitation ng linya ay ipipinance po ng government. But in the case of DDR, ang tinutukoy ko po, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, sayang po yung linya na kahit naitayo na namin ulit, pero yung mga tao na biktima na gumagawa ng mga panibagong bahay, mga maliliit, kadalasan ang biktima dito, mga maliliit po ang bahay. Ang problema, wala silang pambili kahit dalawang bulb, tapos 10 metro na wiring. So, kaya sayang din po yung pondo ng gobyerno patayo ng bagong linya, but the beneficiaries ay hindi rin po nakaabel dahil wala silang pambili. So, ang target po ng department, bibigyan man lang sila ng house wiring. Ang ginagawa po ngayon, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, yung sitio electrification program po natin ay nasa General Appropriations Act annually, libre po sila ng 2 ilaw at isang outlet. Yun din po ang gusto kong mangyari sa department, kahit bigyan lang ng ilang metro na materialis, makapag-umpisa lang sila 1-2 ilaw. This is intended for the victims, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, not for the electric cooperatives.
Mr. Speaker, now I understand the concern of the Honorable Dagook. It is for the assistance to the affected by the calamity. So meron naman pong ibang mga pamamaraan gaya po ng local the LGUs, meron po silang mga calamity funds na pwedeng ibili ng mga wiring materials para po ibigay sa kanilang mga constituents. And I will make an amendment on this bill na ang departamentong ito ay pwede ring magbigay ng additional funds sa mga LGUs para madagdagan po ang kanilang calamity fund. So isa po yon sa nakikita kong solusyon sa concern na Honorable Dagook, na it can be through the local government units as far as identifying who these recipients are. And I will try to see if we can make an amendment or accommodation to the request of the Honorable Dagook. Because like I said earlier, kung meron naman pong mga magdo-donate ng mga electrical wiring sa departamentong ito, which is possible, ay wala naman pong sinasabing ipinagbabawal ang distribution ng mga ganitong klaseng pagtulong sa mga ating kababayan. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. At least naintindihan ng ginoong sponsor yung gusto kong ipaabot na problema. But I would like to respectfully suggest with the indulgence of the sponsor that pag hindi naman lahat ng local government units, lalong-lalo na po sa mga third class municipalities and poor provinces, ay may calamity fund. In my experience, 35 years in the electric cooperative until now, wala pong tulong na house wiring materials from the local government units. Pag tinamaan po, ang inuuna po talaga ng LGU, pagkain, gamot at iba pa. So, kaya po, nagkakaroon ako ng pagkakataon na maidulog habang ako po ay nagiging kinatawan sa Kongreso, doon sa ilang taon na experience ko na nakikita ko, I hope that the honorable sponsor will consider those amendments in the proper time.
Mr. Speaker, I will be willing to speak with the office of the Honorable Dagok to make such amendments at the proper time, Mr. Speaker.
Yun lang po, Mr. Speaker. Ginoong sponsor, marami pong salamat sa pag-accommodate sa aking mga clarificatory questions.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Franz Castro of ACT Teachers Party List. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Franz Castro is hereby recognized.
Questions.
Representative Castro, can you repeat your...
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon to all our colleagues and also to our good sponsor. So would the sponsor, Mr. Speaker, yield to some of my clarificatory questions and comments?
Certainly, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you po. Una-una, Mr. Speaker, magko-comment lang muna ako, no? General comment po dito sa House Bill 5989. So tila halos lahat ay gusto nating gawan ng departamento o bagong ahensya. Department of Disaster Resilience, mayroon for Filipinos overseas and foreign employment, Department of Water, Traffic Crisis, Interagency Management, etc. Sa lahat ng ito, Mr. Speaker, sinasabi na itatayo ang department o ahensya bilang solusyon sa mga problema halimbawa ng OFW, mahal at maruming tubig, traffic at iba pa. Pero nakikita natin na bukod sa nagre-resulta ng redundancy lang ng mga ito, hindi talaga nasasagot ang mga underlying problems. Isinasantabi lang ang mga hinaing ng mga mamamayan tulad halimbawa, Mr. Speaker, ng mga OFW na walang malapitan tuwing nagkakaproblema sila sa labas ng bansa. Sa Maynilad at Manila Water, sa EDSA at iba pa, sa pangakong andyan na yung bagong ahensya at siya ang sisisihin o kanyang diretso o accountability. Superficial solutions, so deeply rooted issues. Pabalat lang pero puro papel ang inihahapag nating mga solusyon sa ating mga mamamayan. Ang masama, these are real-life hardships na araw-araw na kargo ng mga Filipino. Pero papel lang ay binibigay natin sa kanila. Halimbawa, Mr. Speaker, itinayo ang Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. Pero nung huling budget deliberations, tayo dito sa Kongreso, nagbigay ba tayo ng karampatang budget para sa pagpapatayo ng abot-kayang pabahay? Ang hekutibo, ano na sa mga aligasyon ukol sa korupsyon at iba pang mga kababalaghan sa housing projects na nagresulta sa pagkasayang ng public funds na supposedly so livable and decent housing units? Nakikreate ba tayo ng enough number of plantilla items para sa personnel ng existing agencies para sapat na nakatugon ang mga ehensya sa respective mandates nila? What have we done decisively to address the housing backlog and to eradicate poverty and that is behind homelessness? Kaya po, Mr. Speaker, uulitin po namin, itong Department of Disaster and Resilience, but this is a paper solution sa kaso ng disaster mean greater loss to the lives and livelihood, greater danger for the Filipino people. Para sa isang archipelago at bansang tinatawag na Ring of Fire at Typhoon Belt, Napakadelikado nito. Ika nga ng Time Magazine noong 2030, the Philippines is the most exposed country in the world to tropical storms. Pagkatapos po, Mr. Speaker, ng Yolanda, lumabas ang terminong criminal negligence. Madalas nga nasabi ng mga nasalanta ng Yolanda survivors. Survivors nga kami, pero we are being made victims twice and thrice, over and over again, long after Yolanda. Yolanda aid, Mr. Speaker, ay hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa rin natatanggap ng ating mga survivors. Yung shelter assistance ng DSWD hanggang ngayon ay di pa rin naibibigay. Schools na forever na ginagawang evacuation centers at iba pa. Kaya sinasabi nating criminal negligence. In effect, by sweeping problems under the rug and by forwarding false solution, this bill will spell a greater disaster for our people. Okay, Mr. Speaker, tatanong ko lang po, no, una pong topic ko ay yung tungkol sa compartmentalized view sa disaster. So I agree with Congressman Dimaporo about his predicament dito po sa batas na ito, no, because nakakonsentrate po ang disaster, yung definition or yung definition po ng disaster as natural disaster. So malinaw po, Mr. Speaker, unless specifically indicated in this act, the term disaster shall refer to the natural disaster. Sa bawat mention sa disaster mula sa framework hanggang powers and functions ng DDR at mga ibang ahensya at unit sa levels ng responsibility, sa funds at response gaya ng assistance, ang tinutukoy po dito ay natural disasters lang. Tama po ba ito, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, under the definition, it is correct that natural disasters ang scope ng bill na ito. But like I said, hindi naman po ibig sabihin natural disasters lang ay hindi natutulungan yung mga human-induced calamities. Dahil ito naman po ay pwedeng may mandato ng presidente upang tulungan based on humanitarian assistance. At for example na lang po, gaya po ng nasabi ko kanina, hindi naman po nawawalan ng pondo yung mga kagaya halimbawa po ng Marawi. In fact, the 3.5 billion was taken from the calamity fund as far as the 3.5 billion is concerned para po sa rehabilitation ng Marawi. Ibig sabihin, mas malaki pa po yung pondo na ibinigay doon na hindi na kailangang iasa pa sa, for example, sa departamentong ito. So, hindi naman po ibig sabihin ay hindi na rin pwedeng tulungan ng departamentong ito yung mga nangyayari ng human-induced. Kaya lamang po ay hindi naman kasi kaya ng departamentong ito pigilan o magkaroon ng resilience doon sa mga, for example, terrorist activities. Trabaho po kasi yan ng department ng DND. Yan po meron naman pong mga ibang ahensya na nagre-respond doon sa mga elemento para ma-prevent yung, for example, in case of terrorism. Hindi naman po yan scope ng departamentong ito dahil hindi naman po ito nagkakaroon ng mga intelligence funds activities o anti-terrorist practices or policies. So iba po yung purpose na kinreate dito sa departamentong ito. Hindi naman po ibig sabihin ito'y kinecreate ay mawawala na ang response ng government doon sa mga human-induced calamities gaya ng terrorism or kung ano man nangyari sa Marawi. So hindi po ito ang kumukuha ng pondo. Trabaho po ng the whole of the national government to take care of whatever disaster is happening, whether it is natural or whether it is human-induced, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, tama po kayo, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. So yan ay nasa ayon sa Section 4 that the mandate of the department covers all natural hazards. Tapos nag-list po tayo ng 3 broad classes of hazards. In the phrase starting with the provided in the last paragraph, it is exclusionary clause. Ibig sabihin, human-induced disasters ay hindi pasok sa mandato ng DDR. At sinasabi nyo nga po, ito nga ay, halimbawa, yung mga terrorist attacks or human-induced disaster ay gagawain na po ito ng DND. Nakalagay din sa Section 5 yung powers and function of the department. Pero Mr. Speaker, bakit ganito po yung naging pananaw ng bill? Hindi ba ninyo pinakikitid yung definition ng disaster? Maging ito man ay international o maging ito man ay nandoon sa ating RA 10121. Bakit ninyo pinakikitid po, Mr. Speaker, itong definition ng disaster?
Well, hindi naman po sa pinakitid natin yung definition ng disaster. Kaya lamang po, ang departamentong po ito ay very specific doon sa purpose. There are other departments concerning the human-induced as far as terrorism and other incidents are concerned. Meron naman pong ibang departamento na para doon sa mga cases ng hindi natural in nature. Hindi naman po pwedeng sakupin ng buong departamento na ito ang lahat ng, for instance, how do we prevent the terrorism from happening? Hindi po yun ang mandato ng departamentong ito. Yun po ay nasa PNP, nasa DND, at nasa OCD. Yun po ang trabaho ng ibang departamento. When we create a department, it is very specific. But it doesn't mean it takes away funds from the other departments. It takes away funds, but funds can also be given. For example, more funds can be given to DND. More funds can be given to OCD to respond to human-induced calamity. So it can be beneficial in the long run. Ibig sabihin, meron pong binigay para sa natural disasters at meron din pong ibibigay para doon sa human-induced. So very specific po yung departamento na ito. But like I said, it does not prevent it does not prevent the department from helping as far as when it comes to humanitarian assistance or response to any emergencies. So, hindi naman po limited. Ibig sabihin lang, dinidefine lang po natin kung ano ang scope ng DDR, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. So, I think this is a cracked and compartmentalized view on disaster. So, sinasalamin nito ang intended response ng gobyerno sa iba't ibang disasters na paulit-ulit na nararanasan ng mga mamamayan. Halimbawa po, bakit tayo magdi-distinguish ng pananaw at response sa natural and human-induced disasters? Samantalang parehong mabigat ang tama sa mga Filipino ng bagyo at lindol at gera at pagbabakwit dahil sa militarization o pangangamkam ng lupa ng ninuno. So we believe, Mr. Speaker, that the solution to a disaster must be a people-centered, community-based, civilian, comprehensive, and urgent o maagap. And this is the right way to respond to whatever kind of disaster, be it natural or human-induced. Okay, ang ikalawang pong issue, Mr. Speaker, nabanggit natin na dinidefine yung power ng DDR. Okay, pero sinasabi niyo po, nakalagay po dito sa mga provision dito sa ating batas, dito sa ating panukalang batas 5989, that you are creating a mega department. Pwede niyo po bang pabulaanan ito or do you agree, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, that on my impression that you are creating a mega department?
Wala naman pong nakalagay ditong nakalagay na mega department, Mr. Speaker. It is a department that will coordinate everybody, streamline the response capability and coordinate in a faster manner lahat ng kailangan kapag merong disaster. So hindi naman po nakalagay na ito ay isang mega department. Kung isasama po natin yung lahat na ng human-induced and natural, baka po nga maging mega department ito. Pero hindi po siya ganun ang design. The basic mandate of this department is very clear. It is to oversee and coordinate the preparation, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of disaster climate resilience plans, programs, projects, and activities. It is to provide the leadership for the continuous development and strategic systematic approaches to disaster prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, and rehabilitation. And also to provide a clear, comprehensive direction in the implementation of the plans. Meaning, para po ma-reduce yung natural hazards, effect of climate change, and also we can manage the impact of disasters. So, very clear po yung mandate ng departamentong ito. I agree na malaki po ang scope ng departamentong ito, but to save lives, kailangan po ay malakas. Kailangan po ay empowered ang departamento na ito. Because this department is about saving lives. It is about preventing the harsh impacts of disaster. Gaya po ng na experience natin sa pagputok ng bulkan at gaya po ng mga kung ano man darating pang mga epidemic, pandemic, or health concerns. Dapat po ay parati tayong nakahanda. And I agree na malaki po ang responsibilidad ng departamentong ito. Kaya nga po kinakailangan ng tulong ng lahat ng ahensya. Hindi lamang po ito naging isang ahensya. Kailangan po ang tulong ng lahat ng ahensya at lahat po ng mamamayan. So I don't see the definition of a mega department, but I wish it was a mega department so that it can respond to the needs of our people as far as saving lives, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Kaya ko po nasabing mega department ang kinikreate natin dahil una, marami pong mga provision, Mr. Speaker, hanggang letter H yung sasabihin ko. So yung sa section 4 po, nakalagay dito, the department shall be the primary government agency responsible for leading, organizing, and managing the national effort to, etc., etc. So, nandoon po sa section 4, nakalagay yung pinaka parang general ng department. Ganon din po sa section 5A. Recommend to the President the declaration of the state of calamity and the lifting thereof. So, di po ba merong ahensya na nagre-recommend ng ganito? So ipapasok natin ito dito sa department. And letter C, catch all provisions under general functions. Yung 5A, 13, disaster risk reduction, disaster preparedness and response. Doon po, nasa section 5, 3, 37, and 19. So medyo malawak po ang coverage ng emergency measures nasa Article 3. So tama ba ako? Pwede pa nga sigurong magdeklara ng curfew na mukhang nationwide ang sakop ng kapangyarihan na ito na pwede ring magrasyon ng goods. Tama po ba yun, Mr. Sponsor?
The department, is the question about declaring a curfew?
Yes po, dahil sa lawak po ng coverage, nakita ko dito, on emergency measures, pwede pa nga sigurong mag-order, di ba, ang department ng nationwide na curfew. Tama po ba ang aking impression?
Pwede po siguro kung merong kaukulang batas dahil ang ginagawa pong curfew ngayon ay based on the local government units based na nasa ordinansa po nila yung mga paggagawa ng mga curfew.
Sa pa pong issue, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, ibibigay sa DDR ang takeover power ng state. Power to take over or direct the operations of privately owned public utilities and business. Meron po bang ganitong kapangyarihan ang DDR?
Alam ko po ay meron. Hinahanap ko lang po yung section na yon, pero meron po.
Okay? So Sa pa po ay various powers with respect to infrastructure projects like fast-tracking licenses and permits, clearances, etc. to implement disaster recovery and rehab measures, including housing projects. Nandyan po yan sa Section 5C. 4. Kahit administration of tax credits, papasukin na rin ng DDR. Nandyan po sa Section 36D.
Pagdating po sa mga tax credits ay yan po ay recommendatory powers lang po ang departamento ito. They will have to coordinate with the DOF and the other agencies as far as tax credits are concerned. Ang pong kapangyarihan ng departamentong ito ay dun sa mga donations na ibibigay coming from maybe international countries as far as tax incentives are concerned, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, nababahala lang po ako, no? Kasi in terms of tax, malinaw pong nakalagay dito sa Section 36D, Section 5C, number 4, na parang merong no? Although sinasabi ng ating sponsor yung recommendatory lang tong DDR, but you have to review, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, yung pong mga section na binanggit po dahil ito po ay mag-encroach na po doon sa trabaho ng BIR.
That's correct, Mr. Speaker. And I will take a look at the...
Yes. Kahit sa pag-determine ng pangangailangan kung kailangan ng international assistance, ito po yung sinasabi natin tungkol sa donation, ibibigay sa DDR at sa President. So, yun po, no, yung andito po sa section na ito, yung paano po ba yung magiging proseso doon sa mga international donations kaugnay ng mga disaster, Mr. Sponsor?
May capacity po ang departamento nito tumanggap ng mga donations coming from different organizations, international or local. So magkakaroon po ng mamamanage po yung lahat ng mga ibinigay, donations or funds. So meron po ditong provision na ang departamento na ito ay may kapasidad na mag-manage and mag-distribute based on the law na ibibigay sa departamentong ito.
How about, Mr. Sponsor, the donations given to the LGUs? So kailangan po ba ito ay dumaan muna sa DDR? Kasi sa experience po natin, halimbawa po, Mr. Sponsor, ako po nakakasama rin ako sa mga relief. Dumidiretso po sa mga local government units. So dito ngayon, pupunta muna sa DDR bago mag-LGU. Tama po ba yung ganong proseso?
Depende po yon doon sa nagbibigay, Mr. Speaker. Kung gusto po nilang ibigay sa direkta sa LGU, pwede pong tanggapin ng LGU. Kung ito naman po ay, kung gusto nilang ibigay sa departamento na ito, ay dahil merong mga tax incentives, hindi po hadlang ang international community ay magbigay ng donation sa LGUs.
Okay. Next issues po, the DDR will prevail overall. So sa Section 5B, 2 and 3, sa usapin po, Mr. Sponsor, ng mga kontrata ng settlements at policy sa land use and zoning, the DDR will prevail over policies or decision of other government departments, government agencies, GOCCs, LGU, and other government institutions. Tama po ba ito, Mr. Sponsor?
Mr. Speaker, at Section 5?
B. Section 5B.
B. Section 5. Under the powers and functions of the department?
Yes.
Section 5. Ang Section 5 po ay Wala pong Section 5B. Baka po iba ang kopya ng...
Oo nga, ano. Baka, ito po, Section 5B, 2 and 3. Sa usapin po ito ng kontrata ng settlements.
Let me just find it, Mr. Speaker. I apologize. I don't have any resource persons around me. So, Section 5 is the powers and functions of the department. Tama po ba, Ginoong Speaker? And then, ang number 5 po sa letter A is general functions. And then letter B is disaster risk reduction. Letter C is disaster preparedness and response. Letter D is recovery and building forward better. Tama po ba ang kopya ng Representative Castro? As far as my copy is concerned, those are Section 5.
Okay, tama po. Ito rin yung kopya ko, no? So ang ibig ko lang po sabihin dito, no, kung magkakaroon po ng conflict, halimbawa po, yung mga kontrata on settlements at policy sa land use and zoning, sino po ba yung mananaig? Yung po bang mga LGU o yung pong desisyon ng DDR?
I think that the DDR is given power to implement for a faster implementation of whatever it is that needs to be done as far as rehabilitation is concerned.
So ibig po sabihin, halimbawa po sa mga itatayong mga evacuation center na mga munisipyo or probinsya at iba pang mga nag-qualified ng LGU, so magpiprevail po ay ang DDR.
Ang DDR po ay isa sa magkakaroon ng pag-aaral kung saan pwede dapat itayo ang isang evacuation center, for example. So, siguro naman po yung pondo ay dito rin sa DDR manggagaling, at kung kinakailangan pong mag-expropriate ng right of way, ay meron din pong kapangyarihan ang departamentong ito.
So may mga sistema at mekanismo ang DDR ukol sa pag-accredit po ng CSO at mobilization ng volunteers at pamamahagi ng relief goods na kaiba sa sistema at mekanismo sa tingin ng LGU ay mas effective at napatunayan na sa karanasan. So ibig sabihin na masusunod pa rin po dito yung DDR.
Since may plano po ang DDR as far as relief operations are concerned, ito po ay nakikipag-ugnayan sa mga LGUs kung paano ito gagawin. Kaya nga po, dapat ay may preparation na ginagawa at dapat merong talagang paghahanda ang departamentong ito para hindi po nagkakagulo pagdating ng relief operations.
Okay, under po dito sa DDR, Mr. Sponsor, yung papailalim po ba sa DDR yung halimbawa po yung pag-asa, yung pong may kinalaman doon sa mga research na mga ahensya natin?
Hindi po siya directly mapapasailalim sa departamentong ito. Ang proper amendment po, ang wording po namin dito is continuously call upon. Ibig sabihin ay parating nakikipag-ugnayan doon sa pag-asa at sa iba pang ahensya na gaya ng nasabi kanina sa interpellation ng ating Honorable Kimbo ay meron na pong amendment kaming nakahanda para po klaro yung ugnayan ng DDR at ng other agencies gaya ng Bureau of Fire, PNP, Pag-asa, PhilVox, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, last na po Mr. Speaker, pagdating sa pondo po, on funding po, magkano po yung ina-expect nating funding at number of employees po ng itatayo nating department?
Ang pondo pong proposal, ito po ay manggagaling sa OCD ang karamihan. Ang personal services po ay nasa 1 billion. Ang may MOOE din po na 420 million sa central office, and then all the other regions ay may 30 million spread out, so that's about 930 million. So plus capital outlay of 1 billion plus, so humigit kumulang po na 3 billion ang kailangan upang initially maitatag ang departamentong ito, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Initially po, ilan pong personnel?
Hindi ko po
Or plantilla positions?
ilang kabuuan na personnel, but ang personal services po ay nasa 1 billion. Sa ngayon, with the indulgence of the Honorable Franz Castro, I don't have my resource persons here with me, but I can get the information later on, and we shall submit the information to her office when I get it.
Okay. Thank you po. Yun na lang po, Mr. Sponsor. Salamat po. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Representative from the 2nd District of Lanao del Sur, the Honorable Abdullah Dimoporo, for his manifestation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Representative Dimaporo is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And good afternoon to all of you, Mr. Speaker, who are now listening to us. But I'd like to say that I am from Lanao del Norte and not from Lanao del Sur. Mr. Speaker, before my manifestation, I'd like to ask again, why define disaster? And if disaster is defined, why not put it in the title of the department, the Department of Natural Disaster Resilience? Why hide it? And this I cannot understand, Mr. Speaker. No, so why as if that we are trying to hide it? Why the again? I'd like to ask, why the natural? Because what I have understood, Mr. Speaker, is that man-made is the responsibility of another department, like say the Department of National Defense. And then another problem, like for example, the OFWs, that's another department. And this department is only for natural disaster. But we also attend to other disasters. But the difference is that we give more importance to the effect of the natural disaster than the effect of the other disasters. Meaning that we give more money to this department and lesser money to the national defense for the effect that they may give to a place where there are subversives. So why give special attention to natural disaster and not to the other disasters? Mr. Speaker, that's my question.
Mr. Speaker, this was the proposal of most of the authors, as well as the proposal since, I don't know, I think I heard this in the 17th Congress also. So this has been the, in fact, the proposal also of the President, as far as I know, during the SONA. So I really don't know why they did not include the why it is just for natural disaster, but it does not, like I said, it does not prevent it from addressing problems as far as response or assistance to any type of disaster. Maybe it was just concentrated to the immediate problem of response to any calamity. But we do not discount that, for example, in the province of Lanao del Norte, there are human-induced disasters. It does not in any way take away the capability of the national government to respond to such disasters. In fact, in Marawi, it was the opposite. It was given more funds to respond to such type of disaster. And like I said earlier, there are other agencies also dedicated to, for instance, terrorism or human-induced disasters. And this is just a proposal from the authors, and I would be happy to get the any amendments from the Honorable Dimaporo in why the title of this bill is as such, the creation of the Department of Disaster Resilience.
Representative Marino and Representative Dimaporo, we can go through that during the period of amendments. But for now, this is the period of interpolation.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, now I will manifest. What we see, Mr. Speaker, is the unfairness or discriminatory attitude of the majority. What we see here is the rule of majority, enforcing what they want. Most of the natural disasters are in Luzon and the Visayas. But most of the man-made disasters are in Mindanao. And what we are showing here is that we are giving more importance to the natural disaster because of so many things that we have seen in the proposed bill that can help that can help those that are affected by the natural disasters. Mr. Speaker, we in Mindanao have seen the unfairness of the majority from Luzon and from the Visayas, giving more importance to themselves and lesser to us. And this is the reason why there was an MNLF, and then later on an MILF, and why there are still many subversives in the mountains of Mindanao because of this. And what we will see now, Mr. Speaker, is again the importance of the majority. Yes, we will be attended to, but not as much as in the places of the majority. The Marawi siege, Mr. Speaker, happened before this bill. And whatever big amount it received, it is not because of this bill. It was because we were all treated equally in the past. And now, with this bill, we will be treated differently. Yes, we will all be attended to, but not as much as in other places. So this is my manifestation, Mr. Speaker. I think this can be made an issue, as it was also made during the time of the MNLA, the issue that we were given lesser opportunity in Mindanao. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The manifestation of the Honorable Dimaporo is hereby noted by this chamber. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate. And suspend the period of sponsorship and debate.
The period of the suspension of the period of debate is hereby Approved.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, can I move to suspend the session for a few.
Session suspended. Resume.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the consideration of House Bill number 5989. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any objections? Hearing none. House Bill 5989 is hereby suspended. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill number 6930. For this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. So
The
moved,
Secretary General is hereby directed to read the title of the bill and hereafter call the roll of votation.
House Bill 6930, an act requiring parents to plant 2 trees for every child born to them and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill number 6930. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Zaldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Jong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez, Franz Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Berzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondo, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabutyan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cari, Castelo, Castro, Castro Franz, Castro Fedenil, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Cuanco, Colyantes, Crisologo, Cuwa, Quaresma, Cueva, Colyanga, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, Del Mar, De Los Santos, De Los Montalia, Demaporo Abdullah, Demaporo, Muhammad Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael III, D. Ian Paul, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Caesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia, Jose Enrique, Garcia, Pablo John, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Herongo, Edgo Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales, Aurelio Dong, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Groseta, Gico, Gullas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D. Hofer, Halosos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Limlem Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Losotan, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Magundadato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles, Juan Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez, Malañaon, Waminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Roni, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padjernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Rimulya, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman Romero, Romualdez, Ferdinand Romualdez, Yeda Marie, Romualdo, Roman Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sancopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savillano, Xiao Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alicia, Tan Angelina, Tan Shamir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulpo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Brother Eddie, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaras, Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waycorat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call for House Bill number 6930. Abante, Abaya, Acosta Alba, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arbison, Mentado, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Berzaga, Biason, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Castro Fredinil, Co Angelica, Co Elizalde, Cuanco, Cuwa, Dalipe, Dasa, Defensor Michael, Duavit, D. Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Estrella, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Garin Sharon, Heron, Gonzalez Sandro, Gico, Guya, Alosos, Javier, Co Wilton, Konghun, Lagon, Diachon, Losotan, Magundadato, Marcoleta, Mendoza, Mercado, Nava, Nograles, Juan Fidel, Nunez Malanyaon, Ong Jose, Uwano Dizon, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Puno, Ramirez Sato, Rimulya, Revilla, Sagarbaria, Saulug, Siao, Suarez Aleta, Taduran, Tanalisa, Tanangelina, Teves Jose, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villafuerte, Villarasa Suarez, Yu Zamora Ronaldo.
With 222 affirmative votes, 0 negative, and 0 abstention, House Bill number 6930 is approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill number 6931. For this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read House Bill number 6931, the title of the bill, and call the elections for nominal voting thereafter.
House Bill number 6931, an act requiring all graduating senior high school and college students to plant 2 trees each as a civic duty for environment protection and preservation and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill 6931. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg, Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta Alba, Acosta, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Del Monte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabotyan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter Campañero, Cayetano Maria Lardi, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalaw, Co Angelica, Co Elizalde, Coanco, Collantes, Crisologo, Cuwa, Cuaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, Del Mar, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Muhammad Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael III, D. Ian Paul, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Pertebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio Dong, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gulias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Komun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Leachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez Malañaon, Juaminal Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Timbo, Badaza, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salos, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Sabellano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez, Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Pambunting, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villaferte, Villanueva, Eduardo, Brother Eddie, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza, Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap, Eric, Yap, Victor, Yu, Zamora, Ronaldo, Zamora, Waikurat, Zarate, and Zubiri. Second call for House Bill 6931. Abante, Abaya, Acosta Alba, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arbison, Aumentado, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Barzaga, Biazon, Biron, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Castro Fredenil, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Coanco, Cua, Dalipe, Daza, Defensor Michael, Duavit, D. Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Estrella, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Garin Sharon, Heron, Gonzales Sandro, Guico, Guya, Halosos Javier, Co Wilton, Comun, Lagon, Liachon, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mendoza, Mercado, Nava, Nograles Juan, Nunez Malañaon, Ong Jose, Juano Dizon, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Puno, Remulla, Revilla, Sagarbaria, Saulog, Siao, Suarez Aleta, Taduran, Tan Andisa, Tan Angelina, Teves, Arnolfo, T. Alan, Uy, Juliet, Veloso, Villaferte, Villaraza, Suarez, Yu, and Zamora, Ronaldo.
With 224 affirmative votes, 0 negative, and 0 abstention, House Bill number 6931 is approved on its third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill number 638. For this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Mr. Speaker.
House Bill number 638 is directed for the Secretary General to read the title of the bill and call the roll of
Members.
for election.
House Bill 638, an act institutionalizing Philippine participation in international exhibition of the Biennale. Roll call of members. In consideration of House Bill number 638, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Zaldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Jongad Vincula, Agabas, Agarao, Agripay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez, Franz, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Tematba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Archenza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Bañas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Berzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bendigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondoc, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cawagdan, Cari, Castelo, Castro, Franz, Castro, Fredinil, Cayetano, Alan Peter, Compañero, Cayetano, Maria La Arnett, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Angelica, Coelzaldi, Cuanco, Collantes, Crisólogo, Cuba, Quaresma, Cueva, Cullamat, Dagoc, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza de Jesus, de Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, Del Mar, de los Santos, de los Samantales, de Maporo, de Abdullah, de Maporo, Muhammad Khalid, Duavit Duali Duterte, Di Faustino Ina, Di Faustino Michael Dator, D. N. Paul, Ebca Secleo, Elago, Enverga, Erisa, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Farinas Ria, Farinas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortuna, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaita, Garbin, Garcia, Jose Enrique, Garcia, Pablo Jan, Garcia, Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gastaya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go, Ed, Go, Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelton, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goseta, Gico, Gullas, Guya, Jaresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, D. Hofer, Sos, Javier Jimenez, Co, Elisa, Co, Wilton, Kunhun, Labad, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lesatin, Liachon, Ligardo, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Leola, Losotan, Makapagalaroy, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Magundadato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad, Nagaño, Nava Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jerko, Nograles, Juan Fidel, Nolasco, Núñez Malañao, Nominal Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Roni, Ortega, Juan Adison, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Panchos, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Hato, Ramos, Rimulya, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Sakdalan, Sagar Baria, Sakaluran, Salcedo, Salimbangon, Salo Sanchez, Sancopan, Santos Recto, Sarmento, Saulug, Salvellano, Xiao Silverio, Singson, Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, si Alvarado, Taduran Talyada, Tambunting, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Shamir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherney, Tejada, Teves, Arnulfo, Teves, Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Brother Eddie, Villanueva, Noel, Villar, Suarez, Villarica, Villalago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora, Ronaldo, Zamora, Waicorat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call for House Bill 638. Abante, Abaya, Acosta Alba, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arbison, Aumentado, Baños Nograles, Baronda Berzaga, Biason, Biron, Bulat, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Castro Fredinil, Co Angelica, Co Elizalde, Cuanco, Cuwa, Dalipe, Daza, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Di Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Estrella, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Garin Sharon, Heron, Gonzales Sandro, Gico, Guya, Halusos, Javier, Co Wilton, Kong Hun, Lagon, Liachon, Magundadato, Marcoleta, Mendoza, Mercado, Nava, Nograles Juan, Núñez Malañao, Noong Jose, Juano Dizon, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Puno, Rimulya, Revilla, Sagarbaria, Saulug, Xiao, Suarez Aleta, Taduran, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Teves, Arnulfo, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villafuerte, Villaraz Suarez, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo.
With 223 affirmative votes, 0 negative, and 1 abstention, House Bill number 638 is now approved on its third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill 7302. For this purpose, may I request the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of House Bill number 7302 and therefore call the roll of members.
House Bill number 7302, an act rationalizing the disability pension of veterans, amending for the purpose Republic Act 6948, entitled an act standardizing and upgrading the benefits for military veterans and their beneficiaries, as amended. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill 7302. Abante, Abaya, Bellanosa, Abu, Abweg-Saldivar, Abunda, Ako, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Kulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabotyan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Compañero, Cayetano Maria Laardi, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalaw, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Cojuanco, Collantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagoc, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, Del Mar, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Mohammed Khalid, Duavit, Duhari, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael III, D. Ian Paul, Ebcas, Secleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Rigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Petebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Sharon, Garin Janet, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio Dong, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gullias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Halosos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Kongun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Leachon, Legarda, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal, Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano, Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Nagaño, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles Juan Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez Malañaon, Waminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda Marie, Romaldo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbarias, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Savellano, Siao, Silverio, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrellita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tianco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villaferte, Villanueva, Eduardo, Brother Eddie, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora, Waikurat, Zarate, and Subiri. Second call for House Bill 7302. Abante, Abaya, Acosta Alba, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Arbison, Amatong, Aumentado, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Barzaga, Biazon, Biron, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Castro Fredenil, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Coangco, Kua, Dalipe, Daza, Defensor Michael, Duavit, D. Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Estrella, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Garin Sharon, Heron, Gonzales Sandro, Guico, Halosos, Javier, Covilton, Comhun, Lagon, Leachon, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mendoza, Mercado, Nava, Nograles Juan, Nunez Balañaon, Ong Jose, Guaro Dizon, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Puno, Remulla, Revilla, Sagarbaria, Saulog, Siao, Suarez Aleta, Tadurat, Tana Lisa, Tana Angelina, Teves, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villaferte, Villaraza Suarez, Yu, and Zamora Ronaldo.
With 226 affirmative votes, 0 negative, and 0 abstention, House Bill number 7302 is now approved on its third and final reading.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Leader.
I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill 7320. For this purpose, may I request the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill and thereafter to call the roll for nominal voting.
The Secretary General is hereby directed to read House Bill, the title of the bill of House Bill number 7320.
House Bill 7320, an act requiring government agencies to indicate the blood type of the individuals on their identification card, certificate, and licenses, appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill number 7320. Abante, Abaya, Abellano, sa Abu Abuya, Gatsil, Dibar, Abunda, ako sa Alba, Adjong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Sinaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Namantimat, Bamatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aventado, Babasa, Bagatsin, Balindong, Baños, Nograles, Barbers, Baronda, Bersaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bendigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabutyan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cawagdan, Cari, Castelo, Castro France, Castro Fedinil, Cayetano, Alan Peter, Compañero, Cayetano, Maria Larni, Celeste Chato, Chipeco, Chungalaw, Angelica, Colzalde, Coanco, Colyantes, Crisologo, Cua, Coresma, Cueva, Colyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Losa, Defensor Michael, Del Mar, De Los Santos, De Los Montalvo, De Maporo, Abdullah, De Maporo, Muhammad Khalid, Duavi, Duali, Duterte, D. Faustino, Ina, D. Faustino, Michael, Dator, D. Ian Paul, Ebca, Secleo, Ilago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Estrella, Farinistria, Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer, Juliet, Ferrer, Luis, Flores, Fortuna, Frasco, Pentebella, Gaita, Garbin, Garcia, Jose Enrique, Garcia, Pablo Jan, Garcia, Vincent, Garin, Janet, Garin, Sharon, Gastaya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go, Edgo, Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales, Ariel, Dong, Gonzales, Neptali, Gonzales, Carlo, Groseta, Gigo, Gullas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, D. Hofer, Halusos, Javier, Jimenez, Elisa, Wilton, Kohud, Labad, Lacson, Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Dastin, Leachon, Legarda, Limlem, Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Makapag-Alaroy, Maseda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Magundadato, Marcoleta, Mariana Hernandez, Marino Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad, Nagaño, Navanieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles, Juan Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez, Malañao, Nominal, Olivares, Jose, Ronnie, Ortega, Juana Dizan, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Real, Padjernas, Paduana, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Rodasa, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robles, Rodriguez, Roman Romero, Romualdez, Ferdinand, Romualdez, Eda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sacaluran, Salcedo, Salimbangon, Salo Sanchez, Sacopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saudug, Sabeliano, Xiao, Silvero, Singson Mian, Sensuat, Swansing Estrita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Santay C. Alvarado, Taduran Talyado, Tambunting, Tanalisa, Tanan Gilet, Tan Shamit, Tan Shari, Tan Cherny, Teada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Tianco, Talentio, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupa, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Mali Alfonso, Mali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villaferte, Villanueva Brother, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Suarez, Villarica, Yurago Yap, Eric Yap, Victor Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate Zubiri. Second call for House Bill number 7320. Abante, Abaya, Acosta Alba, Alvarez Naro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arbison, Aumentado, Baños Nograles, Baronda, Bersaga, Biason, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Kuwangko, Kuwa, Dalipe, Daza, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Di Faustino Ino, Ebcas, Estrella, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Garin Sharon, Heron, Gonzales Sandro, Gico, Halosos, Javier, Co Wilton, Kong Hun, Lagon, Liachon, Magdadato, Marcoleta, Mendoza, Mercado, Nava, Nograles 1, Nunes Balanyao, Nawano Dizon, Panotes, Pichay, Pineda, Puno, Remulla, Revilla, Sagarbaria, Saulug, Siao, Suarez Aleta, Taduran, Tanalisa, Tanangelina, Teves Jose, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Velasco, Villafuerte, Villaras Suarez, Yu Zamora Ronaldo.
With 226 affirmative votes, 0 negative, and 0 abstention, House Bill number 7320 is hereby approved on its third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we direct the Secretary General to transmit all bills approved on third reading from August 24 to August 26. I so move, to the Senate. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. The Secretary General is hereby directed to transmit all bills of third reading to the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the additional reference of business and direct the Secretary General to read the title of communications and committee reports. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the messages from the Senate.
Additional reference of business message from the Senate, message dated August 19, 2020, informing the House of Representatives that the Senate on even date passed Senate Bill number 1216.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
Message dated August 19, 2020, informing the House of Representatives that on August 3, 2020, the Senate designated Senator Christopher Bongo as additional conferee to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreement provisions of Senate Bill 1564.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee report of the Committee on Legislative Franchises on House Bill number 7507.
To the Committee on Rules.
Reports of the Committee on Higher and Technical Education and Appropriations on House Bill number 7510, 7511, 7512, 7513, 7514, and 7515.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Wala na. Mr. Speaker, I move for a few minutes of suspension.
Session suspended.